Hello, hello. I am here. Don't know if anybody else is here yet, but that's okay. I'm just doing my shit here. Where is it? La la la, la 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 la. Come on. There we go. Hello there, Michelle and Stevie. How's Amelia this evening? Hope she's getting all the good rest and stuff that she needs. Today I am just I'm just getting set up. Of course, I'm just getting set up. Opening up my fluids to stay hydrated. Look what I made. I made like a set of 6 coasters. And I did not trim the loose threads off the back. I guess I'm getting that later. Anyway. Oh, yeah, being quiet. Yeah, you know something's wrong with being quiet. Check out the shirt I found. I don't know if any of you guys remember when I used to embroider all the time. I made this shirt like a long time ago. I needed a t-shirt to put on, and I found this one. I found this one somewhat recently. Not found it, but I found out where I'd been storing it somewhat recently, so I threw it back in my regular stuff. It's like, I'm gonna wear this whenever I want. Yeah, buckle up, chuckle fuck. Anyway, how is everybody today? It's a Friday. Turns out it's a long weekend. Lisa gets Monday off, so it's gonna be a nice long weekend for us. I'm still waking up today. I made my wrist sore. Can you guys hear me? Why is that over there? Oh, that's fine. There we go. Just a second. I've got this guy pointed wrong. That's better. Okay. If I don't point the microphone right, it doesn't pick up things properly. I think it's there right now. And today's topic, let's see what's going on. Why is it doing that? Okay. Oh, and I have moisturizer out, and I have stuff out. Ooh, last day. All right. No more bedtime for how long now? It's going to be a few months. What, 2 months? Yeah, I remember the good old days when I used to have to pay attention to that. I think the kids here, they had their last day last Friday. I forget. We don't have any young ones in our scenario right now, so I don't know, but that's okay. I do not know. Yeah, my kids are grown-ups now. So anyway, what is today's topic? Today's topic is Atlantis. Oh shit, I forgot one thing. Be right back. Ah, there they are. Good Lord, I am unprepared. Unprepared. Today is interesting. You know what though, Stevie? Okay, Stevie says, yeah, Amelia hasn't been feeling too well because she just tested positive for COVID. The good news is that once you've had a round of COVID, so far, what they're saying, once you've had a round of COVID, you're pretty much immune for a while, for at least 6 months or so. So if she's got it now, she gets it now, she gets over it, you probably don't have to worry again for the rest of the summer. So the rest of her summer is going to be pretty good. Because I know even now there's people that are still concerned about bringing their kids around crowds and large groups of people, like going somewhere where there's like a large group of people that you see every day is less worried about picking up bugs than a crowd of people that you don't know, right? So as shitty as it is that she has it now, there's a really good chance that the rest of her summer is going to be like easy peasy with a little bit of luck. So yeah, I'm kind of into Atlantis as a topic. just a little bit. Just a little bit. So I thought I'd grab these books. I knew I had these books and I've had them tucked away with other things and just not seeing them. So, oh yeah, whales in July. Yeah. So it might be, it's that thing where they say a blessing in disguise, right? It's like, it does not feel like a blessing. That's the Fool card, right? It does not feel like well, maybe not a Fool card. The Fool card is, it feels like a blessing today and you're not going to worry about the consequences tomorrow. Yeah, I never really thought about Atlantis other than watching Stargate Atlantis. The idea of it, okay, Plato first talked about the Atlantis a long time ago, obviously. When did he first start talking about it? So the interesting thing about Atlantis, yeah, Plato's Atlantis. So let's just get right here. So Plato described Atlantis as being just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is the rock, the rocks of Gibraltar, the passage from the Atlantic into the Mediterranean, right? And he said that Atlantis was an island kingdom just beyond that, and that it had been destroyed thousands. What? Okay, what does he say? I don't have to look a lot of shit up today, which would be nice. We're kind of jumping down an Atlantis rabbit hole, though. We're not going to try. Yeah, I was really into Atlantis as a kid. I actually remember doing a report on it back in grade school. The topic of Atlantis as someplace that could possibly be real has been around for thousands of years. It really has. It really, really has. Let's see what I've got. Yeah, Plato talked about it 2,500, 2,500 years ago. But when Plato talked about it, he said that it had already been gone for thousands of years before his time. Yeah, do you remember? Okay, we talked about Atlantis not too long ago. This is like our second talk on Atlantis, right? And I had been looking for maps and stuff. And this was one of the maps I was looking for. That right there shows Africa on this side. There's Gibraltar, right? And that Atlantis is an island kingdom between the Americas. I don't think. Well, it was just one of these types of chats, right? Like, it's a live chat. I'm babbling my way through shit. So, oh no, what did we talk about? I think it was part of another talk. I'm not sure that we talked about it. I'm not sure that we talked about just Atlantis. So the thing is, Plato's talking about Atlantis as a kingdom that existed thousands of years before his time. But the reality is that we have never found any. We have found evidence of civilizations that were drowned out when the sea levels rose, because during the last ice age, sea levels were like 450 feet lower than they are today, right? So we found evidence of coastal people then losing their coast, right? And we found evidence of that, but Atlantis itself, we've never really found any proof of Atlantis itself. So everything after that, everything after Plato's description of Atlantis is purely conjecture based on all sorts of stuff. But one of the reasons why it catches everybody's attention is because, like, the biblical flood story is everybody's minding their own business. God decides that he wants to punish mankind by deleting mankind, sends the great flood, right? And people have to start over. So Atlantis fits neatly in with the flood story. Oh, okay, this is a civilization and God's unhappy with humanity. So biblically speaking, we have grounds to believe the Atlantis story. We do, biblically speaking, because our Bible talks about Noah's flood. So we have to how do you reconcile that, right? It's like, oh, well, God destroyed humanity, all these other, the entire world, the flood. Unless you are personally not from a Judeo-Christian society, you've heard the flood stories. So the idea that other civilizations, well, the story didn't start with the flood. I'm kind of going at this backwards, okay? So Plato first starts talking about Atlantis being destroyed in a great cataclysm, sinks beneath the sea. And we don't know if he's saying that Atlantis sunk or if Atlantis was drowned out. But we know several things. During the last ice age, all the water, so much water was locked up in ice that the sea levels were 450 feet lower than they were today. So we know that when that last ice age ended, anything that was built along the coasts at that time, 100,000 years ago, anything that was built along the coast is going to gradually get covered in water. We already know this is a fact. There's actually an entire field of underwater archaeology, right, that goes looking for this sort of stuff. And they keep finding things. Hi, Linda. They keep finding things. So they know that ancient civilizations have been drowned out by rising seawaters. They know that there was an entire period of rising seawaters caused by the ending of the last ice age. So they can't really deny that. And they're trying now, when they find something, they have to reconcile that, well, the ice age ended 100,000 years ago. So how long? It's a mess, right? It's a mess that nobody wants to address is the problem. But what's also happening at the same time is Plato talks about Atlantis, and he talked about it in quite a bit of detail. So we've got Plato's descriptions of Atlantis, and there was somebody else back at the same time after Plato, like still a couple of thousand years ago, somebody else way back when, after Plato, added to the story, because in Plato's time, I don't know how to describe it. Okay, me mentioning cars. Let's say that I'm talking about cars, right? I'm talking something about cars because I don't know shit about cars, okay? I'm saying, oh yeah, like our cars are this, and this is a car, that's a car, that's a car. 10,000 years go by, or 5,000 years from now, somebody digs up this video and I'm mentioning cars, but all the cars are rusted out. There's no such thing as a car anymore. Now it's anybody's guess as to how extensive, popular, well-known, how involved our society was with cars, right? Because to me, a car is a basic standard thing that exists in the world. I'm not going to explain a car. I'm just going to say a car. So in Plato's time, well, yeah, Atlantis. And that was it. Everybody knew that Atlantis existed. Everybody knew that the sea swallowed up Atlantis. Everybody knew this. And the records that we have that talk about it are very, very sparse. But it was very commonly believed that Atlantis existed, that Atlantis was a superior civilization, that Atlantis basically owned that section of the world, right? Because most of our talk about Atlantis is coming from the Mediterranean area, from Greece, Rome, Plato's time, Egypt. So now we're sitting here, we're going, okay, so back in Plato's time, they believed that Atlantis was a real place. They also believed that Atlantis was more advanced than we are now. They believed a whole lot of things. They never talked about whether Plato never talked about Atlantis's technology in the way that we talk about technology, but he did talk about them as a superior civilization based on the standards of his society. But the thing is that we also have, between Plato and us, is the Bible. And the Bible talks about the Great Flood, which our Judeo-Christian society believes is a thing. It believes happened. More and more archaeological proof keeps popping up every day that says that it did happen. Okay, so that's where we're sitting right now. So now we're at this, I don't want to call it a crossroads, because that makes it, well, maybe it is a crossroads. But so now we've got 1,000,000,001 theories about what Atlantis could have been, where it could have been, how it could have been. We've got 1,000,001 theories about how advanced they were. I got to go look up a quick video. I'm going to show it to you. I was just looking at it today and then I forgot to save it. There it is. Okay. Turn off the sound. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at a video. We're going to take a quick look at a thing. So several of the things that, when you're looking at ancient history, one of the really, really, really interesting things is some of the more advanced technology that we see, the ability to move 500-ton boulders that we can't move. We can move a 500-ton boulder today, but we can't. But the things that they did with that boulder, like getting it from, moving it 500 miles up a mountain through areas that are practically impossible, we can't do that now, right? How did they do it? So when you look at the idea of technology, and we talked about acoustic levitation last week, right? So the idea of technology. He basically, okay, Plato described Atlanteans as basically bridging between man and the gods. He generally, as far as I understand it, basically every in Plato's time, the gods were real. The heroes of Plato's time, like the heroes from the Trojan War and all those, they were sons of gods. They had they believed that their gods were physical beings. They believed that their gods reproduced with humans. And so their gods were much more real and human than how we describe God to us, right? Plato wrote an amazing variety of subjects, covering everything from metaphysics to ethics, education, religion, aesthetics. There's my book, Aesthetics, Mathematics. Here's the thing. Plato was like the brain. He was one of the big brains of his time, right? So but I got out my books. Yeah, he was Greek. Plato was Greek. So basically, according to Plato, according to what few texts exist on the matter, because it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe Atlantis, because a lot of evidence that people go there have been things dug up. There has been evidence found where people say this might be Atlantean this might be something that's Atlantean in origin. This might be something that the Atlanteans did that then later cultures then repurposed or did something with or whatever. And it's like, there's no way to prove that. There's no way to prove that, because Atlantis, as it was described, would have been scoured away by the last ice age, for starters. Yeah, if you dive into mythology, some of the Greek gods were serious troublemakers. If you dive into Hinduism, you find the same thing. The Epic of Gilgamesh reads very much like the wars between the gods in Greece and Egypt. And if you look at the Egyptian gods, the Greek gods, and the Roman gods, they're all the same gods. They're just being reinvented for each new culture that comes along. Like Ra, the sun god, is Egyptian. And then you have Zeus, right? Zeus is Ra is the sun god, the father of the gods. He is like the bringer of life to all the things, right? And then you look at what Zeus is. You look at what Zeus is credited with, and it's like it's the same thing. You have Anubis, the god of the underworld, and you listen to the description of who Anubis is, and it's the same god. It's Hades. It's the same god. It's the same kingdom of the dead. And depending on your deeds in life, that decides your place among the dead. It's this, the names are changed, some of the details are changed, but the base story is the same. Yeah, Greek and Roman religion is the same. Yeah, all the planets are Roman except Uranus, and Uranus isn't he one of the original Titans? But Uranus is the father of Zeus, is he not? So what would his name have been? There's the planet Mars. Mars is the Roman. Wait, yeah, Mars is the Roman. Aries is the Greek. If we were Greeks, we'd be calling Mars Aries. It's the same. Venus. I don't think Venus changed between. Mercury is the messenger god because of how fast he goes. What's this? Wait, it's not. I did it wrong. Sorry. I meant to click it. Oh, I can't do that from my side. I can't do that from. I can't click the link from the because I'm using StreamYard right now. I can't click the link. What is that? In Chrome. Is it gonna let me open it? Yeah, Greek myths. But yeah, when you start, yeah, Kronos and Uranus are the same guy. Kronos was Zeus's dad. Uranus was born of Gaia alone. But I thought Gaia was not Zeus's mother. Aren't Kronos and Uranus the same? I am bad. I have to. The reason why I have to have a link ready is because I forget little details about this stuff all the time. Anyway, well, that went down the hole. There's a small gap between the back of the couch and this table. The one book just slid right down there. Just boop, and it's gone now. Dolaire's Book of Greek Myths. Yeah, I brought it up on Amazon over here. So that's kind of cool. Now, how do I get back? Is that how I do it? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing now. Nope, I don't do it that way. I don't know what I do. I've got that up over there so I can still watch the chat. I want to show you guys a quick video. This is a guy. I saw this video originally like years and years and years ago. Well, not years and years, but I saw this video a long time ago. This guy is building this guy is I'm not sure if he's an engineer. Zeus's mother was Rhea. Uranus was his dad. Yeah, and I thought Kronos. Uranus was Kronos' dad. Zeus's mom was Rhea. Okay. I'm absolutely happy to be corrected here. No problem there. So yeah, it's not the relationship that I thought it was, but when you go back to the different religions, there's definitely two names. Like I said, Aries and Mars for me is the best example because personally it's the easiest one to remember, right? But okay, Hercules and Heracles, they're the same guy. Come on, right? Anyway, And then when you look at Egyptian, then when you work your way, is Kronos the one who ate all their kids at first? I believe so. Yeah, I can't remember. But when you work your way backwards and you look at, okay, Osiris, okay, Kronos was the one who ate all of their kids, and Osiris was chopped up by one of the gods, had to be restored. There was a story about one of the Greek gods having to be restored. When you start working your way backwards, you realize that most of the gods, the names change, but when you look at the jobs, when you look at what each god was responsible for, there's not a whole lot of difference. Everything basically stays the same. They have new names. The stories are slightly different, but they're all the same gods until you are lost backwards in history, which is an interesting. Oh my God! Oh hell no! Oh my God! Hercules was just one of a cast of thousands. Zeus got around. Be right back. I just gotta pick up my book. Okay. Yeah, it would be easier to list the kids who didn't belong to Zeus. Anyway, I just wanted to show off my books. Yeah, this is so this book here, this is Tiahuanaco in Mexico, or in the New World. Yeah, he was the OG man whore. Oh, he was. And the funny thing is that in every other pantheon, and there is not one pantheon, there's not one religion where Zeus was faced, where the like Ra, either they were man whores like Zeus, or they had basically entire harems of wives. The only difference in the king of the gods, the only difference that the king of the gods, kings of the various gods, experienced was whether or not their wife was okay with it. Whether or not their wife was their only wife or just the main wife of the harem. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Now I do believe that we had a civilization just before, just after. Okay, I think it's most likely that during the last ice age, everything's covered in ice. Population is the population has settled itself. There might be a map here that indicates where there might be a map. That's one of the reasons why I wanted this book. I didn't even think about it till the last fucking second today, which is why I'm so overwhelmingly prepared. And there's a couple of pictures. Yeah. Okay, we can just look at this here. There's been evidence. Okay, this is new. This is new information that has come out since these books were written. I've had these books kicking around for a while now. Since these books were written, there has been evidence that shows that the Mediterranean Sea, which is where a lot of these stories are centered, like the Greeks, Egyptians, Romans, the Etruscans, the Babylonians, they're all centered around the Mediterranean. This is basically Mediterranean mythology that we're dealing with, right? Now, there's other cultures with other mythology. We've got Lemuria, we've got Mu, we've got those mythologies are coming from the East. But recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, I guess, pardon me, I chugged a bunch of pop and then I'm regretting it. Burp. So the pantheons don't really change. We're just repackaging the same things. And here's the thing. Christianity did the same thing to a huge degree. We really did. We have got great heroes we've got great heroes, followers of God. Now, in the Greeks and the Romans and all of those guys, They were sons of the gods, sons and daughters, half gods, half god, half human, half this, half that. They had godly blood. What's the word? They were semi-divine, right? Christianity comes along and says that's not true. That's not how it works. But most of the great heroes of the Bible, there's still a tendency to have the same stories. The same stories are there. We've got Isaac and Esau. Isn't kind of like the story of Cain and Abel. Well, that's the gods and the titans, right? So demigods. So we've repurposed even in our monotheism. Our Christianity and Judaism and Islam, we're called monotheistic religions. We only have one God, whereas pantheon, many gods, a leader. Don't forget, in with Zeus, some of the other gods were trying to take his power. We're trying to take over. Norse gods, the same thing. Like there was always some pressure that, hey, if things don't work out, I'm gonna kill you and take your throne. This sort of thing. So basically, they were an entire royal family, is what they were. Now you've got Cain and Abel, which were fighting against each other. Cain and Abel was the gods, the sons of the gods and the titans. Isaac and Esau was people of, okay. This is so long ago for me that I'm not going to get most of it right. But a lot of the really old stories, a lot of the really old histories are very, very much copies. You've taken out the divinity and you have left a copy of the same thing. The one where which one was going to sacrifice his kid until God said, "Don't do it." Wasn't that Esau? No, I forget. I got you remind me of the name and that'll be fine. But the one, so yeah, God is a title, not a name. It's a job. It's true. It is true. So what we've done in Christianity, what we have done in monotheism, we've said there's only one God. So now all of our stories, all of our lessons, all of our history has to still tell the same stories, still get the same points across. Only nobody is divine anymore. You're not a son of God anymore. You're a worshiper of God. You're a disciple. You're chosen of God. Job, I think maybe. No, wait, because it was Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. So that was one. But yeah, so like Lot with Sodom and Gomorrah, doesn't that sound like a Gorgon? Doesn't that like one of the things about the Gorgon was her role in punishing people, and it wasn't direct or it wasn't indirect, but there was so many direct and indirect correlations, like just so many correlations. And we've got the proof of it. Even biblical scholars have been forced to agree. I think I'm getting that info from Good Orm. You know what? Okay. I'll tell you right now. I have this thing. Okay, I have this belief. Now, even when the story is not accurate for the sake of entertaining the audience on TV, they usually do a pretty good job of getting the kernel of it right. So the story is probably being twisted up for the sake of TV, but the names are probably correct. That's been my observed experience. Like I used to watch Xena back in the day. Xena Warrior Princess. That was like back. I'll tell you right now, 25 years ago, that show was just awesome compared to what else was on there, especially for like female empowerment. But they would talk about all these guys and then completely fuck up the story, right? But at least the names were right. So get your starting point where you will, and then fill in the gaps later. It's fine. I mean, Xena was awesome. Everybody either wanted to be Xena or sleep with Xena. I wanted both. So but that's a whole different conversation. Anyway, This kind of matters because the reality is then you start going into other cultures like the Epic of Gilgamesh. There are so many elements of the Epic of Gilgamesh that are in ancient history from the Mediterranean area, that are in ancient teaching. It's all evolving, but it's the exact same fucking stories. The stories don't change. The stories fundamentally are not changing. The same, and to a certain degree, that's logical because there's certain lessons that you want to teach people. But what lesson is being taught by saying that, oh, God was unhappy and turned Lot's wife into a pillar of salt when he was destroying Sodom and Gomorrah? That's a weird lesson, but why do so many cultures have a similar story about the gods being offended and coming in and just wiping out an area just to punish them? And Norse mythology, and the frost giants would come in and freeze an entire village or region. And then the gods finally had to do something about it. God comes down, destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, and then Lot's piety is what fixes the problem. Whereas in Norse mythology, it is the Norsemen praying to the gods, and the gods finally come in and a big war is fought. But the story is the same. A powerful group destroys people, and then the gods decide to stop. And one of the stories is related to one of the Norse stories related to the frost giants and stuff is that traitorous humans would sometimes go and communicate with, I'll lead you here, I'll help you with this if you promise me power, and yada, yada, yada. But the frost giants are very, very much on par with the Greek and Roman titans. And in Egyptian mythology, there was a similar, I forget about Egyptian. I don't know very much about Egyptian mythology, but there was a race of, there were monsters. There were monsters in Egyptian mythology that had to be defeated, that the gods had to defeat, blah, 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 blah. So that's its own thing. Just one sec. I'm going to be up and down today. I don't know why. I just got to blow my nose. Well, I made it 41 minutes before I had to get up and blow my nose. And usually I'm up within the first 10 to 15. So I'm getting better. Allergy season is not hitting me as much. Okay, so anyway, I segued again. Let's go look at this map. So that's the Mediterranean world. Okay. There is evidence. I started this and then I got off on a tangent. This is my day to day. My day has been all about tangents. So there is evidence that Straits of Gibraltar. Wait a second. What is this? What is this one? Yeah, I'm not going to use that map. I'm going to go bring up an actual map of the Mediterranean. This is important because, come on. Okay, it looks like I'm going to have to do this. Okay. And a quick little question here. Okay, let me just get this. So everybody recognizes this. This is a map of the Mediterranean Sea, right? Over here is the Strait of Gibraltar. The water here is about 1,000 feet deep, going through that little teeny. So this entire ocean. Okay, let's go over here first. This is what matters, okay? So we've got the Red Sea here. The only reason why the Red Sea is connected to the Mediterranean is because of the Suez Canal. That didn't exist 10,000 years ago. We have the Nile. We have the Nile that comes from down here. Am I not casting? I am not casting. God, I'm not very smart. There we go. Okay, so let's just bring this back out. Okay, so we've got there's the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, there it is. This is the Mediterranean Sea. Actually, no, you guys won't hear me if I take that off. Let's see if I can do this. No, oh, right, I can't do that. That is still not helping. Nope. I'm trying to, there, that's better. Oh my God, that's the one I've been looking for. Okay, so this is the Mediterranean Sea, right? And this is pretty simple. Mediterranean Sea goes here. We've got the Black Sea and we've got the Caspian Sea. Mediterranean Sea goes here. The Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, as far as memory serves, is filled from, I forget which way it goes. The Mediterranean Sea is basically filled from the Strait of Gibraltar. Okay. And when you go over here, you've got the Red Sea, which is here. This is the one Moses was supposed to have parted. You've got the Red Sea, and it's not very visible on this map. Yeah, it's visible on that map. You've got the Nile, okay? Nile puts water into the Mediterranean. The Red Sea, now that we have the Suez Canal, now that the Suez Canal has been built, the Red Sea puts a little bit of water into the Mediterranean, right? That wasn't happening 10,000 years ago, at least not as far as anybody can tell. Then you've got the Black Sea way up here, and you've got the Caspian Sea way over here. The Black Sea and the Caspian Sea are kind of self-contained and they may or may not have drained into the Mediterranean and out, but it's unlikely. It's more likely that, let me see. Let me just. Okay, the Black Sea is supplied by major rivers, principally the Danube, Dnieper, and Dniester rivers, which means that the Black Sea does not get its water from the Mediterranean. Let's see if it's does the Black Sea empty into the Mediterranean? Yeah, the Black Sea's only outlet is the 22-mile long, 0.5 to 2.3 mile wide Turkish Straits that connect the Mediterranean through the Bosphorus, Sea of Marmara, and basically, my point being is that 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age, when the water levels were about anywhere between 400 and 500 feet lower than they are now, the Mediterranean, the Straits of Gibraltar, that water is like 1,000 feet deep. Yeah, Italy's the shape of a boot, right? Italy's the shape of the boot, and this is Sicily right here. So it's the football that Italy's kicking. That's why they call it that, because Sicily is right there at the end of the boot. It's not part of the boot because it's a separate island. Oh, why do we never hear it? I've heard it called a football or called something that Italy's kicking. I don't know. So when you come in this far, you can see the lighter blue is all shallow areas, right? And what they've determined is that it's very likely that during the last ice age, and this is the important part, it's very likely during the Strait of Gibraltar is 1,000 feet deep because of tidal action going back and forth through the strait, basically digging the channel deeper and deeper. Okay. It's very likely that during the last ice age that this area was above water. And you can even tell right here, right? You can see on either side, the Strait of Gibraltar is really deep, but the area on either side of it isn't that deep. So if you take away 500 feet, and we talked about this before. We talked about this before because we're looking at some of these areas where we're looking at some of these areas where with a water level 500 feet more shallow than it is now would make some of these islands, like this area here, would be much bigger and much more shallow. And there's no accounting for just how much tidal action has swept away pre-existing land masses. If you have a landmass that is not anchored by bedrock, then it's very easy for tidal action to just completely shape and reshape the area. Anyway, the theory right now is that during the Younger Dryas, the Younger Dryas comes up a lot because it was a rapid deglaciation event where a lot of glaciers just melted very rapidly. And Plato's timeline puts Atlantis as being destroyed at the end of the Younger Dryas. So you've got glaciers all over the place. Everything north, everything France, Bulgaria, everything north of there is all locked up in ice. This has very little inlet water coming in. Oh, don't never be sorry for a random thought. My God, I'm here to be a squirrel. This is fun. This is fun for me. Don't worry. Okay, so basically, what they're finding evidence of is that during the last ice age, right up until the Younger Dryas, it is possible that the Mediterranean, like the Black Sea and the Caspian, right? They're like enclosed bodies of water with no significant outlets or ways to get out. And a lot of their water losses through evaporation, yada, yada, yada. So you've got this much water, this Gibraltar does not exist. So there's no tidal action drawing water in every day. This is not connected. Sea levels, this is all locked up in ice. These two seas may not even exist at that time. Pardon me. I got to stop drinking so much pop, but I like it. Okay. I am like doing this drum roll moment and I need to stop. Okay. So basically, recent theories have been that during the last ice age, the sea levels were low enough in the last ice age that the Atlantic Ocean could not reach the Mediterranean, that there was no gap, there was no opening, there was no way for the water to get in. So, and because of the ice age, because everything was so much lower, and because of the limited amount of water, that there may have been a river going through the Mediterranean, maybe opening up into a few small lakes, but that otherwise this was empty. That the Mediterranean was basically empty. And if you come in around Greece, you can really see this. If you create a situation where the Mediterranean Sea is 500 feet lower, most of these shallow light blue areas are suddenly above water. Okay. Now, if you look at all of this area here, if all of this, the light blue areas are going to be the low-lying areas. They're going to be closer to the water's edge where people who fish for a living can survive, blah, 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 blah. Right? There's a small strait going past Istanbul, emptying the Black Sea. So maybe you've got a river that comes through here, down here, and meanders. And where did ancient people live? Well, the same place they live now, the coast. So if you have a river coming down past Istanbul, out through the channel, that's out through the pre-existing channel that's already here, and then meandering through this as some plain down to wherever it's going to come out, then you're going to find people all along this area, living, fishing, transportation, all the things. So when you're looking at that, when you are looking at this, there's, like you drop the Mediterranean by all that space. Oh, hey, tortoiseshell moon, hello. Oh, long-legged Italy kicked little Sicily into the Mediterranean Sea. That's cute. Okay, so there's basically what they have been discovering. Underwater archaeology is now becoming a more and more established science now that we have as we develop more and more ability to actually get into the water. So, get down deep, because just a dive, underwater is one of the worst environments to work in. You can die just from being underwater for too long, because you can get what's called the bends. Getting equipment down there, blah, 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 blah. They are digging up towns and villages. They're digging up all kinds of artifacts in these shallow areas. That they're finding all sorts of stuff in these shallow areas that is like, well, wait a second, this area was last above water 10,000 years ago. This doesn't make sense. They're not talking about a lot. This is back to the flood myth. Because the flood myth, where the flood story is happening here, is that what some scientists are now saying is that during the Younger Dryas, which was showing every sign of the beginnings of a new ice age. While sea levels were super, super shallow, the rapid melting event of the Younger Dryas caused the Atlantic to rise rapidly. Water started flooding in through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean Sea, and all of these areas were flooded out. But what they're saying now is that it's entirely possible that once the water breached the Straits of Gibraltar, that this entire area may have filled up in as little as 2 years. 2 years to fill an entire sea, because you've got sea levels have come up, and it's literally a dam bursting, right? This kind of matters because a lot of the stories are placing Atlantis right around here in the North Atlantic, which is really interesting, because you've got an underwater landmass here that's higher than the what's in this area. There's a few islands here. Yeah, you've got Santa Cruz. So this area here is shallower, but it's also on a giant tectonic plate. So Plato's story puts the kingdom of Atlantis going all through here. Seawater rises and buries this at the same time that the seawater rising rapidly, catastrophically, to bury this. And also, don't forget, if you take a glass, put a bunch of ice in it, and then, oh, see you later, Michelle. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. As long as I know somebody is listening, that's fine. You keep listening. We're good. Okay. So whatever happened, one of two things happened. This is the theory. These are the two competing theories, okay? Something happened, Atlantis sunk. Take an ice cube, push it under the water. What happens? You push down on the ice cube, or drop a rock in the water. Doesn't matter. You put something in the water, something that is currently above the water, you put it under the water, the surrounding water goes up. It's like, oh, well, wait a second. If Atlantis sank beneath the waves, then it's pushing down. I don't know how to describe this, because it's not like you're pushing down ice, or are you, right? Like, what if whatever caused Atlantis to sink beneath the waves, what if Atlantis had a giant ice cap on top of it? Because there is all this open water. They don't really have any way to know. Like when you go down to South America, these ice sheets are going out over the water. They don't just stop at the edge of the land, right? So when you're up here, for all anybody knows, the Greenland ice sheet was reaching all the way down to here, and you cause a cataclysmic event to melt a bunch of it. Like I said, the land mass of Atlantis is already in the water. Putting it below the water is going to cause some rise. It's not really possible to imagine the catastrophic amount of whatever has to get pushed beneath the water for the water to be displaced upwards. But if it's a massive collapsing ice sheet that was maybe there was a massive ice sheet over here that just, thanks to volcanic activity, because volcanic activity can spontaneously, Mount St. Helens is a good example of volcanic activity spontaneously melting an ice sheet, because Mount St. Helens, which is way over here somewhere, can I still find it? That's Mount Rainier. Mount Hood. Where is it? I'm not going to find it. I am not going to find it. Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, Mount St. Helens. Okay. That's all ice on top of that. That's all ice and snow on top of that. When Mount St. Helens erupted, this had a glacier cap on it that just went and melted as quick as you can snap your fingers with the eruption, because that's a lot of heat, right? Same thing up here with Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is covered in ice and snow. It's an active volcano. If Mount Rainier ever erupts, almost all of this ice and stuff is going to melt in one step. And it's going to be very, very quick, right? I'm using this as the example because I live in the area and I've learned a little about it. So one potential theory regarding Atlantis is that there's the North Atlantic, there's the plate tectonics. That is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, plate boundary between east and west, right there. So one of the theories is that Atlantis, well, several theories around it, but a giant event along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge caused Atlantis to sink, right? And the disruption caused a tidal wave or a something to move towards the coast, breaching Gibraltar, sending a flood of water into the Mediterranean. Other theories are like, okay, that happened. How and why it happened, we won't talk about. But because of the Younger Dryas, because everything was basically covered in ice at the time, that event here caused spontaneous melting. The Atlantic sea levels goes blasting up by a few hundred feet all in one step, causing this to happen and causing that to happen. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because that's one of the theory. The theory from this side of history, this far away, is that would explain the Mediterranean filling up. That would explain the potential evidence that the Mediterranean filled up very, very quickly. Either way, the answer is around glaciation, sea level rise, that sort of thing. It's just a matter of what caused it to rise, right? There's also like ice dams. There's all sorts of theories as to how that could happen. The other theory is that Atlantis was a very powerful kingdom here that was centered in the Atlantic, and they were at war with another equally powerful kingdom. And that would have been Mu and Lemuria over here, which is another area. This entire area would have been above water during the last ice age, all the way up through here. Like all of this would have been open land. You take away 500-600 feet or more of water, all of this is suddenly above land. That's the okay. So now we're into the really, really boring stuff, right? This is the boring geography lesson, but the interesting thing about this is that it feeds into the flood myth, which feeds into other cultures and their timelines, other cultures' flood myths, which goes, again, back to what I started with. My God, I started with this an hour ago, but this goes back to the Bible. So at the same time that people are going, This could be the geographical reason for the biblical flood myth. It's like, well, if we are willing to believe this in order to explain the flood in the Bible, why are we not willing to believe that there was an unknown kingdom, a kingdom that we don't believe in? Why are we willing to believe that a kingdom of Atlantis could not exist? And if they did, if an island kingdom existed in this region, especially if it like bridged, and like I said, we've got the possibility of a large landmass, but islands all over the place. If a large landmass had existed here, it's almost a certainty that they would have known about the Caribbean and stuff like that, right? That's why it's important for me. That's why this piece, that's why I always harp on this piece of it. It's like, we will believe this. We will believe this when you're looking at just the Mediterranean. We will believe this in order to explain the biblical myth, but we will not believe this to explain a coexisting culture that could have been completely wiped out without a trace. Meanwhile, they're digging up cultures that disappeared without a trace in the Mediterranean right now as we speak. But anyway, now we're back to, but we're the main thing that we always default to, and we default to this like all the time. Oh, well, they couldn't have been an advanced civilization. If they were an advanced civilization, we'd know it. And it's like, I'm sorry, if we experience a global electromagnetic pulse that knocks out electricity to the rest of the world, and that lasts for more than, say, 5 or 6 years, turn off the lights, walk away for 1,000 years, and what realistically is going to be left of our civilization? Sweet fuck all. Roman concrete literally is self-repairing and lasts for thousands of years. I read a really fascinating article on exactly, did they invent this with intention, or was it a happy accident? Who knows? But Roman concrete, because of the mixes of stone and sand and their process and curing it in seawater, the process by which Roman concrete was made, that's why Roman aqueducts are still standing after thousands of years. The concrete, the way that we make concrete now in our modern society, and everything we make has concrete in it, right? Our modern concrete can literally rot and only really last for a couple of 100 years at best in good conditions. Turn off the power for 1,000 years and we are going to have nothing left. You're not going to find a piece of plastic, because plastic just grinds down over time, right? You throw if you go to the beach, and you find an old piece of plastic, an old plastic bag, an old piece of whatever plastic, it's brittle, it's crumbly, it's whatever. And that's only after 6-8 months sitting on the beach. I am not saying that plastic is biodegradable. I'm not denying the problem of plastics are a definite problem in our society right now, and we definitely need alternatives and blah, 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 blah. But turn off the lights, come back in 1,000 years, and the plastics that we have would be so, just through exposure to the elements, would be down to microscopic levels. Unless you are literally doing your archaeology with an electron microscope, you're not going to find evidence. There's no evidence. We would not leave evidence of our society behind. There is nothing. We do not build the last. Now, the Egyptians, on the other hand, they built the last. They built with the idea of wanting stuff. They were a stable. These are civilizations that were stable, lasting for a very long time, and so they're like, we want to build with that in mind. We want to build with the idea of a long, long shelf life. They did not build the pyramids expecting the stone to weather away to nothing in 150 years. They built it. They chose their materials carefully. They built with longevity in mind. And of course, we don't even know how they did it, let alone have the proof that it was. Did the Egyptians build the pyramids, or did they just simply find them and then make them, make it, oh, this is mine now. Did they build them or did they find them? Because it's really easy to take credit for something. I move into a house. I buy a house on a nice piece of property that's got a whole bunch of really nice something. Somebody built a really nice something, and I pass it down to my kids. And so they just assume, and they don't know. I don't know. Okay, you buy a house, you have your kids. You don't really talk a lot about the history of the house. You pass it down to your kids. They pass it down to their kids. And then they find something on the property. They're digging around the property one day, and they find this amazing thing that has been built on the property, and they are going to assume that it was just left there by their great grandparents. Nobody really mentioned it, but it must have been left there by the great grandparents, because they're not going to know that. They're not going to know the history. They're not going to know the longevity. They're not necessarily, okay, we keep records, but if you're from I'm saying it ass backwards, but I think you guys know what I mean. Did the Egyptians just simply stumble onto it, and over time, the pyramids got wrapped up in the Egyptian as an Egyptian thing, even by the Egyptians? Because one of the things that the Egyptians did, and the Egyptians are kind of, Plato was talking about the Egyptians when he was talking about Atlantis, and it's kind of weird because Plato learned about Atlantis from the Egyptians, from his visits to Egypt, right? Reading documents from Egypt. That's how he learned about Atlantis. So you go to Egypt. Egyptian kings were very, very, very good at claiming past successes as their own. It's not a guess. It's not a joke. It's not a, it has been proven. Ramses has a great victory, so he comes home and he takes an existing thing, an existing building, an existing stele, those big obelisks, and he has it recarved with his story. Because the story of his ancestor, when you are the leader, when you are engaging in all of this stuff for the glory of yourself, your kingdom, and don't forget, Egyptians believed that their pharaohs were the direct descendants of their gods. So talk about a god complex, okay? So you're some pharaoh trying to make your mark in the world, because one of the beliefs among the Egyptians was that if you became forgotten, it would affect your place. There was a huge link about creating personal fame for yourself and what's going to happen to you in the afterlife. And just like a lot of our religion and stuff now, a lot of stuff that was done in Egyptian society was motivated by what they thought was going to happen in the afterlife. So you're a pharaoh, you're just making your name, you have a big victory, and maybe your uncle who tried to kill you when he was a kid, because that was, killing your way to the throne was a thing that back then. You have a big victory. Well, carving over somebody else's achievements is also a fuck you to whoever that person was, especially if they were a rival or whatever, right? So it was common, and it happened all of the time. There are monuments and whatever. There are things that they have found that have been carved over. They don't know how many times, because they would just repurpose and repurpose and repurpose. And even the Sphinx, one of the most famous images, one of the most famous icons of Egyptian history, and the Egyptians agree with this. This is not some fringe theory, that it's very likely that the head of the Sphinx was recarved from something else into what it is now. And of course, there's no way to know what that would have been, right? So the Egyptians were masters of repurposing old stuff for the new guy. That is the very long way around that idea. What does this have to do with Atlantis? And again, like I am sitting here with 3 separate books I am. Okay, look at this. I am sitting here with 3 separate books about Atlantis that I've just had kicking around the house for the sake of having it kick around the house. I believe I've also got a magazine, a generic magazine, right? Because there is too much evidence. Okay, this is the punchline. Let me get to the punchline, because this is why I always, whenever the topic of Atlantis comes up, this is why I always call it a rabbit hole. The punchline is there is too much evidence there is too much evidence of a civilization that was advanced in ways that we don't understand to deny the possibility. You can deny that it was Atlantis. You can say Atlantis itself was never a thing. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But you can't sit there and say, why is it that of all the ancient cultures, their oldest monuments were the biggest, were the ones that we can't replicate today? Like all the pyramids they've found, they've never found one with a body in it. As much as, oh, these were tombs for ancient pharaohs. It's like, I don't know what they were, but they're going in there and finding grave robbers. Grave robbers don't take everything. They take what's valuable. They don't, they're walking and finding completely empty chambers. King's tombs of important people are carved on the inside. Carved. King Tut's tomb had his entire story about, prayers to the afterlife. They're very, grave robbers don't take that stuff. Pyramids are just shiny and smooth. They're empty, right? They were some of the first things that were built. And yet by the later kingdoms, they couldn't replicate it. The Greeks put up these huge monuments. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was the Parthenon. Yep, it was Parthenon. Okay. Parthenon was Greek. The Acropolis of Athens. The Acropolis. Okay, the Acropolis is, I'm not going to. I don't know what that is. Let me find it. This matters. Okay. Oh, come on. Where's the good one? There it is. Okay. Share this tab. Is it up there? Did I add it to the stage? Of course I didn't. That is the Parthenon. This is for those of you such as Michelle that are stuck listening but can't really watch, the Parthenon is basically let me get into the photo so I can see it better. Let me click the button. Okay. So basically what you're looking at here is the Parthenon, and you can see, if you look, you can see the building. You can see that there's Greek temples and buildings all around it, right? And you can see that the top has been flattened and reinforced by walls, and then these buildings are put in, that sort of thing, right? Which is absolutely fine. And there's statuary, there's all sorts of stuff, there's all kinds of columns, whatnot. So there's the building there, and then this is the foundation that it's all built on, which was, so they level off everything, they build it up, they do the things. Here's so this one here literally points to a older Parthenon foundation. This is where it gets really interesting. And I saw I don't know if they're going to show more. Let me see. So they found so much shit there. Nope, we're not going to get to it. Okay. The interesting thing about the Parthenon, and I don't think that I'm going to find. Let's see if I can. Let me just do the thing. The interesting thing about the Parthenon is that as much as the buildings on top are like absolutely, it took a lot of talent and skill to put these buildings up. Nobody's denying that. Nobody is denying the skill. Oh, that's not going where I want it to go. There's no denying that. But the foundation stones, and again, this here is pointing to an older, and you can actually see a bit of a color difference, right? These are older stones, but what they're not telling you is that these stones were also bigger and took a lot more skill just to simply move them into place. The columns, and I don't know if you can see that in this photo, are they were put together a bit at a time. This is not a single column that was raised. These were slices that were stacked up on top of each other, and then blocks were put on top of that. And like I said, not denying the skill that needed to go into just building these giant temples and buildings. It took a lot, and there was a lot of it, but they were built on a much older foundation, and there's evidence that the skill level, the reuse had advantages, but they rebuilt on the found footprint of the damaged temple and reused its blocks. The Athenians could imagine that the older Pantheon was reborn, larger and more impressive, but still intimately connected with the earlier sanctuary. So basically, there's no denying, nobody is pretending, nobody is denying there were older temples and buildings on the site. And then they came along and they rebuilt it. But, and I should have looked this one up first, because this one kind of blows your mind a little bit when you get a really good look at it. There is a foundation stone under this building, like one of the front, like along the, like not necessarily that one there that's being pointed at, but there are several stones making up this older foundation that are bigger, they're just huge. There's no way that we could move it with our current technology. And based on these are lighter stones that were put together in pieces to be able to handle them. They couldn't handle putting up an entire column at one go. So it's like people point to that as like an Atlantis connection, because one of the things that they have found is that a lot of the ancient monuments and buildings that we see now were rebuilt on top of older foundations, and those foundations required a much higher level of skill. We don't know how they put this together. And then realizing that they put this on top of a foundation that is even more difficult to explain. That's the punchline, right? And it's and like I said, whether you want to believe it's Atlantis or something or someone else, you can't really deny that. That's not going to show right. You can't really deny that. Yeah, Plato's fountain on the Athens, the Acropolis fountain. Let me see. No, that's not the one. So when you get over here, so this is Athens, right? And then you get to over here. So giant. These are megalithic blocks that we would not know how to deal with them even now. This is the thing, right? And then we're looking over here at, where is it? That's not the one I want. No, I'm not seeing the right one. Let me see if I can find. Let me see. I know I've got a photo in here, so let me see if I can find it. One thing is I'll look it up in one of these little books right quick. It's like, oh, there's a cool photo, and then I will go look it up online and get more information. Basically, there are, when you start looking at South American pyramids and stuff like that, they have the same problem. They have the same problem of stone. It's like, let me see which one this is. Oh, come on. National Geographic. I'm not giving them my email. Yeah, this is a pyramid. Is it going to let me do it? It's not going to let me do it. What the heck? I'm getting kind of annoyed. Have you guys ever noticed that nowadays when you try to go on, when you try and look at a site, like you gotta go through how many just to be able to oh, that's why I'm just looking at the wrong area. So let me see it. Yeah, this is Teotihuacan. So these are pyramids in Mexico. And I believe I've already popped it up. Yep. Okay, so these pyramids in Mexico, basically the top, they're short, and then they come to a flat, and then they come to a platform at the top, right? At the top of each platform would have been like wooden huts, wooden buildings of some kind is the assumption, right? And the theory here goes that, well, this was pretty easy for the natives to do because, and when you get in close, you see it. Are we going to get in close? Oh, cool. Okay, we're not going to get in close. This particular thing doesn't get in close enough to see it. They're made of bricks. They're basically, come on, show me a better picture. Yeah, there's one. Is it going to show me? Is it going to show me? Okay, here we go. Let's share this one over here. I don't know what that's doing. Okay, so basically you're getting over here and you're like, oh, okay, see how the stones are a lot smaller, right? We're kind of going to ignore how basically we're going to ignore the idea that we've always had this idea that natives in that the native population of North America was not necessarily very sophisticated, but we can agree that they made all these interesting carvings, right? But if you look, when you get to the back of this stuff, it's all smaller stones and built from there, because basically what they did was they would clear a spot. The center is basically a mound. So the center is basically filled with debris and then brick and whatnot to fill it up. And we're going, okay, well, they did this. This is fine. They were able to do this for a whole lot of reasons. Time, patience, whatever, right? So we're talking about native North American culture with no knowledge of the wheel is able to do this. And there's a certain logic. It's like, okay, you give somebody enough incentive and time, they can do this. But isn't it interesting how the stuff on the bottom are nice, flat, squared off, and then the stuff around it, almost as if they've come in later, almost as if this was what they found, and then this is what they built up around it. Like as if it's almost like they were rebuilding something rather than building it for themselves, which is, again, back to what was going on over in Greece and the idea of what may have been going on over it. And so there's a lot of stuff left behind that makes no fucking sense. It's like, oh, cultures in one area knew nothing about cultures in the other area. These were all independently, coincidentally so similar, and coincidentally most of the post-flood, based on timing, civilizations coincidentally also seem to be showing evidence of having built back on top of the ruins of a previous civilization. And it's everywhere. There is, of course, I'm not going to find it because I'm not doing a very good job here. Let me see if I can find it. So one of the interesting things that happened in history, not history, Maya, where is that? I am blanking on the name of the place that I want to bring up. This problem. One interesting thing that happened, I'm just going to segue for a minute while I look for something else. One of the interesting things that happened is Troy. Okay, when was the city of... Okay, Troy or Leon was an ancient city located in Turkey. The place was first settled around 3600 BC and grew to a small fortified city. Was the city of Troy real? Troy is an ancient city and archaeological site in modern-day Turkey, but it was also famously the setting for the Trojan War in Homer's epic poem, the Iliad and the Odyssey. So, the city of Troy, Iliad and the Odyssey. I think we've all heard of it. Troy, the Trojan horse, right? Basically, whether the events of the Trojan War, we will never know. But, okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. I want to see if I can get the actual information. Okay, the approximate location of Troy was well known from references in works by ancient Greek and Latin authors, including Homer, Herodotus, and Strabo. Okay, but it's a myth. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's a myth. People didn't really believe that that it actually existed because they knew that there was probably stuff there. Anyway, short story long story short, because God knows I can make a short story as long as hell. Basically, Charles McLaren in 1822. So it took from, at whatever point Troy and the city of Troy and the story of the Trojan War lost to history, yada yada yada. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's not real. It's a myth. Because don't forget, if these myths, if Troy is real, then is Achilles real? Is Helen of Troy real? Like, oh my God, like that changes a lot to find out these places are real. It's okay for it's okay to go looking for Christian artifacts, proof that Christianity and the Christian Bible and the stories from the Bible are real. In 1822, it's not okay to go look and find out that, oh, well, the Greeks are real too, and so were their stories, and so were their histories, right? So this guy takes the description that he finds, takes the descriptions of Troy from the Homer epic, Iliad, Odyssey, and he went and found it. He went and found a city that shouldn't have existed because this is just a story, don't you know? And don't forget, Greeks were known for their plays. Greeks were known for their plays, their tragedies, their comedies. And so the idea that it was not a real place, not a huge stretch. They were definitely, the Greeks definitely understood fiction and wrote fiction all the time. Frank Calvert in 1806. So in 1822, the idea comes up that, well, what if this is a story of a real event and Troy is a real place and we can find it? 1860, Frank Calvert is looking for it. I forget the actual name of the guy. Is that the guy? Yeah, so they finally start excavations, finally found a walled citadel. 1890. That's not that long ago. 1890, the excavations continue. Yeah, Troy, according to Homer, was described as a wealthy and populous city. By this time, some scholars had come to accept the probability of a lesser Troy, a minor settlement, perhaps a princely seat. So, you know, I'm feeling important, so I'll tell you that where I live is the best place in the world. That kind of idea, right? 2001, they're still arguing about whether or not Troy was the major city that it was presented as in the books, in the Greek plays. Let's see. Yeah, so they're finding out more and more about Troy as they grow along, and then realizing that whatever's going on, Troy was a real place. Troy was a real place that was important in some way, shape, or form in its time, and that the Trojan War was probably real. So the idea that we take a lot of these ancient writings and we just throw them out the window. Oh, it's just whatever, right? It's not real. It could not have happened. Let me see. Now, the interesting thing about this particular book, the Atlas of Atlantis, this particular book is called the Atlas. Okay, so I'm just going to drop that right now because basically every single conversation that you have about ancient structures, ancient this, ancient that, you immediately start to find more similarities than differences as you travel around the world. And one of the main similarities is that these guys are moving stones. These guys are engaging in building techniques that make no sense according to what we. Oh, they couldn't have had this. They couldn't have had that. So I'm going to show you guys this. Make it. Come on. I'm going to show you guys this. This is kind of cool. This is a guy. Let me see if I. Okay. Oh, I don't have the English one. Okay. So basically, this guy is showing some techniques that he developed / refined in order to move very, very, very large stones, very, very large objects. And we're just going to watch this. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I'm not sure what you guys are going to be able to hear. Look at that one. I should have started with this. I do this every time I get talking, and then it's like, I should have started with this one. Okay, so this is. I first saw that. Yeah, this particular video was posted in 2013, and I'm fairly certain I saw this a long time before that. Basically, this guy has developed techniques for moving very. Okay, that doesn't look like much, but that stone could easily weigh a few hundred pounds, like just too big for one person to just grab it and pick it up, right? But we've got this idea that, oh, they move these giant stones by throwing them on the ground. They put rollers on the ground. They lubricated the ground or did something to make it all nice and slippery, slid it along, pulling it with ropes. We are assuming really, 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 really primitive methods, right? This is a relatively primitive method, but we are not willing to give any ancient society credit for being smart enough to think of it. This is the thing. And therein lies the rub, because if you're a society that doesn't even have the wheel, and the American, there's no culture in the Americas that had the wheel that we know of. If you're not advanced enough to have the wheel, then what are you doing with that? Yeah, it makes me wonder what we have in the world today that will be debated and questioned as a myth in centuries to come. And well, here's the thing. We're not even giving these, okay, we're saying they didn't develop the wheel, therefore they could not have developed that particular technology. It's like, well, wait a second, because now let's back up. This guy's an engineer. In order to do what he did, we're talking about advanced knowledge, training, specializing, mathematics. Like, you don't just walk in and go, I want to become an engineer. So it's like he had to figure out, okay, well, if you do this, but just don't forget, one of the things that he did, one of the mathematical things that he had to do in order to figure out how to do those he basically put triangle cuts in such a way that the stone could be easily pushed along those cuts. Now that is a lot easier to accomplish. That is a lot easier to accomplish than 10,000 guys yanking on a freaking rope trying to drag a stone across the sand. Right? Makes more sense. It's like, oh, well, if they had been smart, if they had had the mathematical smarts to do that, then they could have very easily developed tools and equipment to make moving the stones a lot easier. Now, combine it with other technologies, and we talked about acoustic levitation last week. We talked about levitation technology, right? Now, like the one example that we talked about was how these monks were using levitation to make a stone rise up like 750 feet. But what if you've only got to make that stone rise 6 inches? What if that guy in that video had the mathematical knowledge to build the tools that he needed to move the stone around, right? Now, that's still not, he's not, I don't know if he is or not. Like, don't forget, like, one thing, I want to go back to that video, actually. I want to go back to that video because the one thing that come on, the one thing I will say, and you can see it, you can see it right there. The one thing I will say is that when you look underneath of this, he's got a concrete platform. He's built a concrete platform to keep everything stable as he works on it. He's adding a layer of technology, and we don't know. We have no idea. Don't know. Okay. But the thing is that we are assuming, and here's the interesting thing. Here is our, what's that word? Hysterical blindness. Here is our hysterical blindness as a society when it comes to going, there could have been a more advanced civilization before us. We're assuming that they would have been pursuing the exact same technologies as us, which they didn't necessarily have to be. We're assuming that they were less intelligent than us, and that doesn't have to be the case. And we were assuming that they're less motivated than us. Or no, they're more motivated, but more willing to use brute strength. We certainly aren't, right? Our religious people, our religious fanatics in our world, because we have them, let's not pretend that they don't exist. They don't show up to work themselves. They don't show up to risk their lives hauling stones in order to build a new church. They donate money so that professionals can be hired to do it. And they've proven, like the Egyptian pyramids and all that stuff, the Egyptian monument builders, right? They've proven that most of them were hired professionals because they weren't going to trust that kind of work to slaves who could rebel, sabotage, just simply refuse to work. They were not going to trust it. They were not going to trust that kind of work to people who could just damage, destroy, otherwise harm the work, harm the progress. So they've just, these are not culture. These are cultures who did have slavery, but it's very likely that there were very few slaves actually involved in the actual day-to-day building because they would have wanted professionals like this guy on the job. Anyway, here's the interesting thing. Most of the mathematics that this guy was using to make that, most of the mathematics involved in this kind of thing, like the Pythagorean theorem, how to figure out a triangle, levers, and most of the mathematics for this came from Greece. Pythagorean theorem is named after Pythagoras, a Greek. But yeah, you see, you can see the concrete platform that he's using. That's a stone that he's got underneath that he's just balanced it properly to pivot properly. But like, look at that. That's the kind of that's still smaller than a stone from the pyramid, but you have a bigger stone, have a few guys helping. And if you build one of these, you instead of grinding up a shit ton of logs, to form rollers, you're building a couple of frames that might move 1,000 stones before it finally. Of course, the wood is going to get chewed up, but it might chew up. You might be able to move 1,000 stones this size before it gets chewed up enough that you have to replace it. That's a lot of stuff getting accomplished, right? But anyway, the point of this is that what he's doing is different from construction sites. Don't do this. You don't see this in a construction site. They bring in a crane. The idea of just throwing down 2 frames and having a guy rolling the blocks along the frame, we don't do that. But you don't build that frame without a strong you do not build that frame without a strong foundation in math. And yet we're willing to accept that most of our modern math came from Greece. We're willing to accept the mathematics required to create the Mayan calendar, which calculates leap years and leap days and has all this other shit. We're willing to accept that they have that kind of mathematical knowledge, but we're not willing to accept that they could have used that mathematical knowledge to develop building techniques that we just simply don't do, don't understand, don't replicate. Right? So you add 1 or 2, like I said, acoustic levitation. You add acoustic levitation so that you have an entire roadway and you don't care, right? You don't care. You have an entire roadway, and this is how the blocks are getting from wherever to wherever. This is part of your process. And then you develop an acoustic levitation like the monks last week that we were talking about, or the week before, blowing drums, blowing trumpets and creating a very specific sound wave to cause it to move. It's like, oh, well, so you move it along. This is how you get along the flat ground. And an acoustic levitation, you don't need to fly it all the way up there. You just need to get it, you just need to get it that far off the ground, and then a couple of guys can just push, right? So that's kind of bringing it in a big old boring circle. But the interesting thing, I am just not finding what I'm looking for. I'm still thinking about this one wall. Oh, wait, Saxea, whatever. Let's see. There it is. I think I found it. Yes. Saxewaman. Okay. Found it. Found it. Let's see if I can get it from the top. There it is. Okay, this is the top view of the Sacsayhuaman fortress. This is a top view of the fortress, okay? So this is a Inca or pre-Inca fortress, right? That was in use. And I'm not sure what everything is, because this is not what interests me. This is not going to show, the Muyukmura pyramid. So that sits up on top of that. That's the wall. The wall is what catches everybody's attention. And this is more of a, oh, are you kidding? Back to the same one. Did I put it up? Yeah, I put it up. Okay. So we've got this fortress. We've got this fortress on top of a hill. And I believe it's a cliff down the backside. And then a fortification walls built along the front side, right? Is that it? Let's share that. Okay. Did we go? We went. Okay. So we've got the state. This is back to other features. Again, pyramids looking like they might be the older of the structures. Pyramids have been dated and found to be older. The pyramids and the Sphinx are older than things like Tutankhamun's tomb. Tutankhamun's tomb was just dug in. It was a dugout cave. Maybe I don't know if it was an existing cave or they just dug out the sandstone. They dug out lighter stone, the sandstone, made a cave. That's where they put him, right? So in the early period of Egypt, they're building these in the early period of Egypt, they've got these massive structures. The later period of Egypt, they're digging out softer stones, and that's the best they can do. Earlier period of Greece, we've got these structures. The structures themselves are gone, but the current structures, the Parthenon and that sort of stuff, the Acropolis, they are rebuilt on top of foundations that were, as far as we can tell, beyond their capabilities. Massive stones. Come on, you can do this. I wonder if I can find it. It's like 3:45. I probably have to think about getting out of Dodge soon anyway. But if you look up you're gonna be able to look this up on your own. You just gotta go through a lot of pictures. But if you take a look at the Greek Acropolis, you're gonna find that the earlier stonework, the temples were built on earlier stonework. When you see the earlier stonework, it's bigger. It's the stones are bigger, the stones are smoother, and in a lot of cases, not all of them, but in a lot of cases, the stone being used is like granite versus sandstone or marble or other stones that are pretty but easier to work with. Yeah, I'm not going to see that one. But when we go back to Sacsayhuaman, man. Anyway, you see the same thing here. You see these, the bottom of the wall is, these stones are huge. These stones are huge. Look at the people. These stones are huge. These stones are massive. And then as you get to the top of the wall, some smaller stones to finish your wall is fine. But these stones are all very, very oddly shaped, right? And then at the end, these stones are more square, but they're smaller. Then you get up here to the top. They're practically, oh, look at that. I can zoom in. Look at that. So you're starting off with these giant stones, right? Giant stones that are fitted together so well. There's no mortar holding these stones together. They're just, so somebody took a stone and went, well, in order to make this fit, I need to go straight up, straight over, down a little, over a little, come at an angle. Oh, wait, an outward curve, then an inward curve, then down here. And their precision, they had such precision that even after major earthquakes, because this is an earthquake prone area, the wall is still standing. Then the stones get smaller. Second layer stones are smaller. Okay, I'm looking at the shapes and I'm going, okay, I can believe that they are still made around the same time. But then you get up here and it's like, well, what happened here? It's like, well, these stones look like they've been removed and replaced with something else. Like, so, well, yeah, look at that. See, there's some stones right there that probably got knocked off because this is an earthquake area. So some stones here get knocked off and they don't even know how to pick these back up. So they just leave them there and fill it back in with smaller stones. The technological ability decreased as time went on. And this is what the larger wall looks like. So this goes on. And again, you come in, it gets smaller. It gets simpler. And these, yeah, this is that one section that I was just showing you. That's how big these stones are. Like, our modern technology, building something like this without the wheel and without any advanced technology, our technology, we might be able to move these stones, but dressing them so precisely so that they just slot together like puzzle pieces and don't move even in earthquakes, we don't have that skill. We do not have that skill. And yet they did this. That's just the walls, and then the fort, what used to be the fort, is going to be on top of that. So this particular wall does get a lot of attention just because of how impossible it is. And of course, that's this people living on the hillside. But yeah, this is fucking crazy. This is crazy. This makes no sense. And you're not going to build your giant hill fort first. You're not going to build your hill fort and then put in this fortifying walls. You build the walls first, because if you try to build at the top of a hill without reinforcing things, then something's gonna collapse down that hill, right? This was put in first. This first layer, logically speaking, I can't even say it. Logically speaking, you know what order things are put together in. But yeah, we have so much in the world today that in 1,000 years we're going to look back and go, "Oh, that's not possible. That's not likely. That's not this. That's not that." Like we know that 1,000 years ago they were building all these massive cathedrals and stuff. We know that they did that. We still don't know how they did it. Yeah, I've never really stopped to think about it, but it's wild to think about the ancient civilization inventing mathematics with no technology or calculators. Yeah. So basically, they invented mathematics, the same mathematics that engineers today are using were invented way back when. Of course, we're making advances in mathematics, right? But the reality is that a lot of hi Moira, if we had to invent mathematics from scratch without being able to look back at Pythagoras and all the other mathematicians from thousands of years ago, where would we actually be? What have you discovered or invented for yourself that didn't come from? And I'm not kidding. Like, I think I did a thing. What did I do? Where is it? There it is. I'm going to make a tangible example. I'm going to make a tangible example. This is going to make sense in a minute. Okay, I did this. Let me just get back here. This is for me. This is for me the logic test. Okay, so this is for me the logic test. Okay, I did this. You guys saw me sewing not too long ago, right? I did not invent this, but I got the idea. There's multiple ways to do this. I was looking for a simple, easy, repeatable way to do it, right? Now, there's multiple ways to move a stone. There is. But if you're going to build a pyramid, you need to find a simple, easy, repeatable way to do it. This was my goal. Yeah, you saw me sew it, right? Okay. What I did when I made this, I watched videos. I found other people's ideas. You can do English paper piecing. You can sew into the corner, then go around the corner. There's plenty of ways to do this, right? And there's probably other people that have done the exact same thing that I figured out. But the exact way that I made that, I had to figure it out for myself, because the way that the only other ways that I knew of to make it, I can do it, but there's no way it would take like Moira, I saw you sew it. Well, it would have taken me like a very long time. English paper piecing, that sort of shit. I'm not doing that, and I'm not sewing it by hand. So how do I do this? What did I do? I took a pre-existing idea. Oh, I know it's doable. I looked up various ways that different people were doing it, right? I stumbled across. I've tried off and on. I've tried this. This is about the third time I've sat down and made the effort to try and do a star. So I've tried other methods. Okay, now this makes sense, because this makes a whole lot of sense. And then I stumbled across somebody doing something different. They were doing a different technique to make a different type of project, and realized if I use that one technique, which was leave a gap at the very end so that you sew back into yourself. And I think, anyway, so at no point did I invent this out of the blue by myself. Okay. This is where we're at right now. This is where we are at right now in our modern society, because we took Greek mathematics. We took Greek and Roman mathematics. We took We took ideas, okay, and the Greeks and Romans credit. Yeah, that's why all art is derivative. We all build on what has been done before. That's right. So I built, okay, because I knew it had been done before. Well, if you're swinging into town and the Atlanteans have already left, if the Atlanteans have already left behind a pyramid or whatever, but but basically I was aware I was aware that it can be done because I had tangible examples to look at. I had the tangible, this is how our entire society looks right now, okay? Not our entire society, but Pythagorean theorem. This is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's Pythagorean theorem. So you got a triangle, right? If you know that and that, you can calculate that or any combination of it, right? That is we consider that to be basic math. But in Pythagoras' time, that was a breakthrough. At least we assume that it was. That was something he had to learn. Yeah, if the ancient civilizations relied on me to invent mathematics, we'd be so fucked. But here's the thing. Most of our mathematics, we start learning math based on, I got to express it properly. I'm not sure if I'm going to express it right. Our modern math is starting us 10 steps ahead because we already have advanced math from the Greeks. And they got most of their math from the Egyptians, who got most of their math from previous civilizations. And all of them, every single civilization from the Greeks on back, credit the gods for bringing them things like mathematics. And we don't know who the gods are. Like, I mean, there's a saying that any society, yeah, we already have zero, right? Zero as a function had to be invented. Zero is a mathematical invention. And yet for us, we're not smarter. We just teach to our kids younger. You know what I mean? And it's the exact same thing. Every single one of us can take a personal example like I just did, right? That's my personal example and say, wait a second, I did something cool with existing information, but nobody handed me 2 pieces of cloth and said, make a star. I did not sort this out in a vacuum. I sorted this out using ideas and functions that literally have followed us through society. Anyway, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That's that engineering guy. This engineering guy, because he's got the skill, he's like, okay, so our modern society is, what machine do we have that can brute force this thing into what we want it to be? Okay, that's what we do. What process do we have that will get it done, that will let us do a whole bunch really fast? That's fine. Their processes were different. They used the same math. They used it in different ways. So my personal theory, my personal thought and idea is that a lot of things, a lot of technology, a lot of this advanced technology, I do think they had advanced technology. I think they had very advanced technology. But back to that guy that was rolling the stone across, that takes advanced technology just to conceptualize it. The advanced technology is the math. And sometimes advanced technology, okay, our advanced technology, aluminum required advances in our technology. Aluminum, okay, at one point, I don't know how far I'm gonna go back. Yeah, I don't know how far I'm gonna go back here, but at one point, aluminum was like more expensive than gold, because the process by which you make aluminum was, I want to go look stuff up, and it's like, I don't think we really give a shit how aluminum was made. But the thing is that smelting aluminum, you mine your rock, you break up the rock, you get the aluminum out of the rock, you do the thing, right? I don't think aluminum is an element. No, aluminum's not. What is aluminum made of? It was something about the making of aluminum. Don't want to. Aluminum does not exist in a pure state in nature. The production of primary aluminum metal begins with bauxite ore, which is comprised of hydrated aluminum oxide mixed with silica and iron. It takes approximately 4 to 5 tons of bauxite to produce 2 tons of alumina, which is then processed down to aluminum. What's the main ingredient of aluminum? Okay, so aluminum, it's everywhere. Aluminum foil, aluminum pans, aluminum cans, right? Aluminum is everywhere. It's cheap, it's convenient, it's easy, not because we're engaging all this super high technology. We're not levitating aluminum out of the rocks. We're not doing anything fucking weird. We've developed processes to make it simpler, cheaper, and easier to extract the aluminum. That's it. That's what we've done. Okay. That's what this guy done. That's what this guy did. He's like, I'm going to use math to build a jig, basically. Like a jig is a jig is just basically, okay, a jig is, I'm going to, what would be it? Okay. One of those hoop things that you do your knitting onto, the hoop thing is called a jig. It's a tool to make your regular chore easier and more convenient, right? So basically, this guy used advanced math that we probably, I don't know that we as a society would have half of what we have if we hadn't learned math, if we didn't have math and things like that to bring forward from mostly the Greeks. That's where we get most of our modern math from. Where did they get their modern math from? Well, they got it from the Egyptians. Where did the Egyptians get it from? Well, they say they got most of it from the gods or from the strangers that came from the sea and taught them how to build pyramids and shit. So I was like, oh, well, wait a second. If Atlantis sinks and the Mediterranean fills up in just a couple of years, then anybody from an advanced civilization in or near the Atlantic wandering into Egypt is going to be seen as a god. Not kidding, right? Like, if advanced civilizations were relatively insulated and kept away and stayed away from everybody else. Yeah, and we exploit the economies of countries where the raw materials for aluminum are sourced, so it remains cheap. Yeah, we keep it cheap. We keep it cheap. But the thing is that at one point in time, it was because we knew what it was, we knew where it was, and it was just that expensive to go get it. It was that expensive to process it. It was just that expensive. So we found ways to make it cheaper. We found ways to make it easier. We found ways to make it more accessible. And now it's just as common. It's one of the most common things that we've got. We use it for everything. Yeah, ancient Babylonia had a lot to do with developing and discovering math that was shared across the different civilizations without the internet. Yeah, this is the thing. So you've got ancient civilizations, and most of those civilizations we can have a completely different conversation about what may or may not have been right or wrong about this civilizations. Like, I mean, there's plenty of like Roman corruption. We can talk about that, and that's fine, but we can't deny the fact that, let me see. How long did the Babylonian Empire last? 1800. The first Babylonian Empire is dated from 1894 to 1595 BC. Comes after the end of the Sumerian power with the destruction of the third dynasty of Ur and the subsequent. So basically, the first Babylonian Empire replaced the Sumerian Empire. How long did let's change it to get the whole Babylonian. $1750. I hate when they do that. I don't care. 2,000 years. The ancient Babylon was an influential city that served as a center of Mesopotamian civilization for nearly 2,000 years, from roughly 2000 BC to 540 BC. So varying levels of power and influence, but they've been there for 2,000 years. right? It's like, well, wait a second. Now, for me personally, living in North America as I do, I'm going to look, but British Empire, what's one of the older empires that we're looking at right now? Modern civilization. So when did modern civilization start? How do we want to define modern civilization? Like the modern era, let's start with World War I. Really, I mean, invention of the airplane. That was kind of the start to our modern science, that was kind of the start to our modern living. How much further back we go than that? But even, okay, we hit a certain stage. North America was discovered 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We're looking at about what? 1492, 1992, 500 years. We're looking at about 500 years. We've only really been able to organize and start doing whatever. I don't know. I mean, a civilization builds up, then it's destroyed. So Britain has been around Britain was a monarchy. So the British Empire is done, kinda. So the British Isles, that's old, but so many changes. I don't know how to describe it. I'm having a thought and I'm thinking out loud as I go. But we came over, okay, I'm going to use the North American example. So we've got wooden ships landing on the shores of North America in 1492. 500 years later, we've got a space station, right? Now, don't forget, so Babylonia falls, and the next in line still has the same. Yeah, we're a historical flash in the pan. And the thing is that every time one civilization ends, the next one builds up on the remains of the previous civilization. And we don't always come out ahead. And we know this. We know this historically. You look at the Egyptians. The Egyptians, for me, are the best example. The pyramids are happening, and Egyptian civilization that was almost 2,000 years as well. It starts getting less and less and less and less advanced. By the end of, they're still pretty advanced. They still have amazing capabilities, some of which we still can't replicate, or we really don't know how they did it. But the thing is, this is all coming from every single one of our modern civilizations is talking about a previous civilization. But give a civilization the ability to take off. Like North America was like all about development, really, because we're starting off from regardless of what we have found left behind by previous civilizations like the pyramids and the South American pyramids and stuff like that. But we take off. Why is it impossible for us to believe that another civilization, the civilization that taught us the math that we needed to get to the moon, why are we not willing to believe that they could have had those capacities too? Like, we've seen civilizations get fairly advanced and then they collapse. They get advanced, they collapse. Civilizations collapse for one reason or another. But you get a relatively stable civilization, and things start to happen. And once they start to happen, they happen quickly. So we learned our math we learned most of our math from the Greeks, who got it from much older sources, but they were the primitive ones. It's like, no, they got it from older sources who they got their math from older sources, and like the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, all of those guys. Oh, we learned this from them, and they say flat out, we only know a portion of what they knew. But again, back to that guy rolling that rock. The reality is that an aluminum, sewing, we can all think of an example where what I did was I sorted out a way to make this easy for me, for what I needed, right? I made it easy, repeatable. It's also teachable, right? That's what it's all about. So why are we so unwilling and unable to believe that there was an advanced civilization and that we're still rebuilding on what they left behind, because we're building our civilization on what the Greeks left us, on what the ancient Greeks left us. We know it, and we pretend it's different. It's different. Because Pythagoras, he was an ancient Greek philosopher and polymath. Pythagorean theorem is the big thing. Let me see. 570 to 495 BC. 500 BC. Let's just call it 500. He was the founder of Pythagoreanism. Don't forget the mathematics, philosophy, all those things. We always separate and reseparate and rejoin and do whatever on different things. So philosophy and mathematics were very much hand in hand back then. Pythagoras' theory of proportions. Pythagoras talked about Earth being a sphere, identifying the morning and evening stars as the planet Venus. Pythagorean theorem, Pythagorean tuning, not sure what that means. 5 regular solids, theory of proportions, sphericity of the Earth. He was the first man to call himself a philosopher, which means lover of wisdom. He was the first to divide the globe into 5 climactic zones. He taught about the transmigration of souls, or metempsychosis, metaphysics, which was holds that every soul is immortal and upon death enters into a new body. Reincarnation. It's like, oh, this is what this guy was talking about. And almost all of these guys talked about getting this information, this knowledge from previous societies. Anyway, yeah, astrology and astronomy went hand in hand. Understanding astrology and astronomy required a strong foundation in math. Yeah, I think ancient Britain was called Albion, but that name came from Greece. I think everything came from Greece at this point, because the Greeks and the Romans came after the Greeks, kinda, but they were also kinda at the same time. Greece and Rome both had the same foundation of city-states merging into a larger country. So Greek, when you say Greek, you really, when you're referring to Greek back then, you really are referring to the Grecian, to the area, because I'm pretty sure Pythagoras would have never called himself a Greek. I think it said he was from Ionia. He would have called himself an Ionian. Ionia is in modern Greece, the modern area of Greece, when you look at the Greece and the Greek islands and whatnot, right? Plato, I think he was from Athens. Let's see where he was from. Yeah, Plato was born Aristocles. He was a ancient Greek, 427 to 348 BC. And don't forget, these guys are coming along later. These guys are coming along later after all the big monuments are built. He's not hanging around watching these monuments being built. He's talking about them after the fact. Classical period was a period around 200 years in ancient Greece, marked by much of the eastern Aegean and northern regions of Greece culture gaining increased autonomy from the Persian Empire. Yeah, so so basically Plato is kind of still is living in a time when they're under the rule of the Persians and becoming more independent, starting to become more independent again. Yeah, he was living in Athens. So he probably wouldn't have he might have called himself a Greek, because he would have been an Athenian in the territory or the area of Greece. They wouldn't have referred to Greece as a country. I don't know why that matters. I just thought I'd point it out. Yeah, it's all Greek to me too. It's all Greek to me. Thing is, though, is that these guys are crediting These guys are crediting the Library of Alexandria. These guys are crediting talking to Egyptian priests. These guys are giving credit to civilizations that are thousands of years older than they are for all the things that they've learned. And it's clear that they were it's clear that at that point in time in Greece that they were still rediscovering this shit themselves. Right? So where did they learn it from? If not Atlantis, where did they learn it from? Because they learned it from somebody, and they learned it from somebody, some civilization. They learned it from some source that was more advanced mathematically and technologically than they were. And the reality is, like I said, technology does not require, like when we say, okay, when we say technology, you immediately think of the most advanced piece of tech that you're aware of. Well, right now for us, tech is our smartphones, our video game systems, we're not thinking a lever and fulcrum system that lets us lift 10,000 tons. We're not thinking of that. We are not, when I say technology, I'm not thinking of a sewing technique that I figured out. I'm not thinking of how to make aluminum. We don't think like that. And the thing is that I do wonder, there's so many conspiracy theories around Atlantis. One of the conspiracy theories around Atlantis is they were massively, massively superior to us, and our various world governments know it. So they're always, Abacus was big tech back then. Absolutely, it was big tech back then. And Abacus is big tech now. And Abacus is big tech now because it's a starting point. Abacus is, there's actually a counting system. Want to know how to count to 100 on one hand? These are your ones. 2 hands. This is your 5. That's your 10s. And then that's your 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. If you can handle your fingers correctly, 99, right? That's tech. That's technology. This technology, we always think of technology as this really, really high-end shit. And the reality is that simple technology, I think that what we're going to find, that if there is super high tech, if Atlantis existed, provably existed, and contained a sufficient amount of high enough technology, that I think that our governments would be suppressing it for all their fucking worth until they've gotten every last bit of use out of it that they can. You know, that race for dominance that everybody's involved in. I think what we're going to find, I think if we can get over our collective arrogance and start taking it seriously and go, where did the fucking Greeks learn their math? Why are we so dependent on math why do we still call it the Pythagorean theorem? Well, it's because we have not independently as a society invented anything better, right? How did they invent it? Why did they invent it? What did they use it for? You don't invent something just to look at it and go, that's pretty. Well, maybe you do. That's what I did with that. Thing is that you don't develop this stuff without a reason. What would that reason be for? What kind of techniques were they engaged in? What other stuff did they know as a matter of course that was just normal, natural shit that they just never bothered to pass down? Like I said, we've got smartphones. We have got smartphones, but if we all if we all just get up, walk out, turn off the electricity, and try to come back in 1,000 years, nothing is going to be left, and you will never find a smartphone. You will never, because what a smartphone is made, our smartphones are made of materials that just simply will not last that long in nature. Just in the open environment, right? We can't even get our fucking phones wet or they're garbage. So anyway, I'm off on my own little tangent here, but no, it's for me, it's a really interesting question. I think that we had advanced tech. I think most of the advance of the tech is simple, easy things that until somebody thinks of it and develops a use for it, it's just, not something that matters. Like figuring out how to move those stones over. And like I said, let me just bring that back up. Figuring out how to do that is like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, the concepts of mathematical philosophy and theories were so advanced. Yeah, they were so advanced that we use them today. Here's my question, and here's your homework, kids. Not my question is, why were they advanced? Now, I'm not kidding. This makes sense. We are talking about they will shut down our electricity when they want to bring modernity to its knees. Absolutely, we are so reliant, and this is what's we are so reliant on our society remaining exactly as is that people are actively fighting changing it. But the thing is, like, that guy is rolling a block. He's organized how to make the wooden slats to allow for the rolling of that block, right? But what's he going to do with that? Other than goofing around, this man personally, other than messing around with it because he's an engineer and this is his idea of fun, what actually is he going to do with it? You're not going to be able. You're not taking this technology down to the local job site and saying, "Hey, try this," and they're going to go, "Why would we do that? We'll just use a crane, put it all in a dump truck, run it down the road, unload it all. Why would we need to do that?" You know? Oh, because what if you want to move a 400-ton block? Well, we won't do that. We're not into that. This is not something our society wants or needs anymore. Why would we develop this process? We already have something that we like. Well, I don't want to. Well, if I don't do it this way, we hear about this all the time. Self checkout. Well, if you put in a self checkout machine, somebody's going to lose their job. A cashier loses their job, right? And people fought against self checkout for years. Still fighting about self checkout because it's going to cost people their jobs. From a technology standpoint, well, it's an easier, cheaper, more convenient society. But from a person standpoint, right? And again, not arguing whether it's good or bad. I'm just arguing that I'm arguing that these mathematicians way back when developed this math just for shits and giggles. No, sometimes they did. Yeah, he was moving. He was just demonstrating how the stones could be moved. And there's a few things wrong with it, but this makes more sense considering the mathematical knowledge available at the time. It makes more sense that the Egyptians would have used something like this rather than dragging rollers and dragging it over the sand and doing all this shit, grinding up tree after tree after tree. This makes more sense. And a combination of low tech, high tech is how you get things done. So what if they also have levitation technology where you're not going to waste the energy to levitate something 20 miles, but you can certainly get a bunch of guys to just, okay, start pushing. Okay, start pushing. Hook it up, low tech for the simple stuff, save your high tech for where it matters, right? We use high tech for everything. But even then we don't. Like I said, we figured out figuring out how to get aluminum out of the ground required us to go low tech and figure out the simplest, easiest way to do it by thinking of simple, easy things that we were overlooking. Once that happened, boom, aluminum's everywhere. It's cheap. But anyway. No, I got several books. The Destruction of Atlantis. Let me stop sharing the tab. Let me see if I do this right this time. Take that over there. Did it right. These are just books I've managed to collect over time. Just Atlantis and other lost worlds. This one here talks about Mu and Lemuria. Mu and Lemuria are the Eastern versions of the same thing, but evidence of underwater cities. The better we get at, look, there's Saxeomon again, using it as the same example. Like, why are the original stones that were laid first ancient Egyptian job creation program? Maybe it may. Okay. We're talking right now. We're talking right now about how we need to reduce pollution. Okay, if we want to reduce pollution, then maybe we need to see stuff like that on our job sites. Maybe we need to see them having stuff like that where you just hire a few guys to just put, instead of running a big gas smoke belching truck to crane to do shit, Maybe we need, maybe that's what their incentive was back then. We don't know, right? But no, a lot of when you take a look at something, especially something that's layered up, the Parthenon they've I don't know how recent this discovery is, but discovering that the stones closest to the bottom, like the foundation stones, you need to put down a foundation stone and level everything. Then you can build your structure on top. The foundation stones are massive compared to the stones that were put on top of them. And the site was built first. Earthquake brought most of it down, they assumed, and then they cleared the rubble, built it back up. What they built it back up with was lighter stone, lighter, smaller, and easier ways to manipulate, because they couldn't recreate the original structure. They could not recreate the original. They could not move. They lost the ability to move those stones, and yet the Greeks came in, built or rebuilt the Acropolis, built on top of a previous foundation. I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to pretend to know any about it. The more recent construction. Oh, AI. Oh, we could do that next week. Let's talk about AI. I don't care. It doesn't have to be all about ancient mysteries and shit. Let's talk about AI. That's the first suggestion we've had today. So let's do that. The thing is that they come back. Now, this is an interesting thing. I'm just kind of I'm having a light bulb moment. So it's okay. So the Acropolis, they come in. Acropolis gets built to the first temple's period. Blah 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 blah. Earthquake. Apparently, it was an earthquake. Everything comes down. They clear the rubble, come back. What they build up isn't as it's nice. Obviously, it's nice. If you've seen the Acropolis, it's nice, right? Nobody is pretending that this is. There were no slouches on this job site, okay? But the older foundation, and this one points it out, the older foundation is the darker gray stone, and people got in there and started looking at the older foundation from the original period, from the original building, and realized that these foundation stones were bigger, made of a more solid stone. They represented a much higher level of technology being required just to put them in place. And again, these columns that's not a single column. They're in sections. Okay. So, and you can see in the background, there's a crane right there, because most of this was knocked down. The Acropolis came down, they rebuilt it, and then most of it came down again as a result of earthquakes, is my understanding. If I'm wrong, happy to be corrected. So the thing is, we see this everywhere. And this is the Greeks who invented the math that we use as part of our calculations to build the machines that are currently rebuilding this. Like, bit of a mind fuck right there, isn't it? It's a fantastic, brilliant, full of optical illusions. Ooh, I've got to look that up. But yeah, the original foundations, though, and the original everything that went around it was like there's a centaur with a skin of a something, panther, lion, I don't know. Yeah, you can still see traces of the Persian shields from Alexander the Great that were at one point below the metopes. The blue circles indicate roughly where they would have been located. So I guess they punched a hole and hung shields in there or something like that. Like, there's a guy up here doing something. So no, I am not trying to imply that this was easy or simple for the Greeks, but they built on top of something that was too difficult for them to recreate, which is assuming why they use simpler, easier techniques to rebuild. What's that? Oh, from the pulpit of the Christian Parthenon, the Byzantine and Christian Museum. I have no idea. I don't know very much. I don't really know much at all about it, except for these are all amazing looking buildings. But they're talking about what everything is, how it should have been put together. But there's the Acropolis there. But if you look at all these fortifications around the sides, I have no idea whether they were put in first or later, earlier or later. That's what it looked like before it was rebuilt, I'm assuming. 19th century photographs show the Frankish tower and the Ottoman dome that was once part of the Acropolis. Yeah, so they've been building and rebuilding. This apparently this started off as a fortress. I don't know. So, yeah, but it's just interesting. The columns are not all the same type. They adjusted the width of the columns so they all appeared the same. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, Kathy has to go to bed late in the UK, but I'm thinking about Stonehenge, pyramids, mathematics, and why the wheel is the most important invention. Why is the wheel the most important invention? Not the only, but now, in terms of transportation is important. I got that. The wheel is an important invention, but we've got the pyramids of Mexico and all the insane construction going on in South America to prove that an entire society and civilization could be built without it. It's one of the more important inventions in our society. But I think there might someday, maybe once we get over our reliance on the wheel, there might be some important discussions around whether or not the wheel was actually the most important. Anyway. Yeah, the Acropolis was its own thing. I think it's done time. I think it's been a temple complex and a fortress at various times for various reasons. So, but I don't know very much about it. I really don't. But what I do know is that the skills and techniques that were required to build it, even if you ignore the fact that the older stuff at the bottom required even more skills and technique that people like me are going, I don't think the Greeks were actually able to move those bigger stones at the bottom. That makes no sense. And we've got lots and lots of indication that it was a huge time frame and blah, blah, blah. But I should probably get going. The wife will be calling me any minute now, but I think the evidence of, whether or not Atlantis itself is something in and of itself, I think it's absolutely reasonable to assume that Atlantis was at the very least real in the way that Troy was real, and they proved it. I think eventually we're going to get the proof that Atlantis was real, but we need to redefine what advanced means, because we are stumbling across advanced techniques all the time. And at the end of the day, when you think about them, you go, oh, that's actually really simple. It's advanced because it's advanced when you don't understand it. But once you do understand it, it's Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I still remember that from what? When did you learn that one? Like grade 7, maybe grade 8. I still remember it from high school because it was that simple. And yet it was groundbreaking. It's groundbreaking mathematics. Brought it forward by 3,000 years, right? And other forms of mathematics are, time seems to be moving faster and faster. I doubt we will have civilizations of the future that will last for millennia. I don't know. I have no idea. We definitely are. That's a whole nother rabbit hole all by itself, because Greek civilization, most of these ancient civilizations had several different periods. I think a civilization that can remain mostly stable for a millennia, I think our ability as human beings to have a stable society that lasts 1,000 years, I think is just not possible. I don't think that's something that we can do. Not unless we have an absolute, and we need such a huge shift in the way that we think as a species. We need a huge shift in the way that we think, the way that we act, the way that we work together. We need a huge shift in all of that before we have a chance of having civilization. Yeah. Time moves faster and faster. Like just the build up, reach its peak, destroy itself. Build up, reach its peak. That's happening. It's like building tremors, right? I don't know, but anyway, I know we didn't really talk about Atlantis itself. Maybe the next time, if we talk about Atlantis again, we really need to focus on what people believe about Atlantis. lifestyle, politics, who, what, when, where. Because there's but like I said, I've got three whole books, each one delving into different thoughts and ideas around what Atlantis could have been. This one here talks entirely about the destruction of Atlantis, compelling evidence of the sudden fall of the legendary civilization. Atlantis and Other Lost Worlds, the Atlas of Atlantis and Other Lost Civilizations. But like there's, Ireland and Terra, the Azores, the Atlantic archipelagos, some people say archipelago and apparently other people say archipelago. I've always said archipelago. I don't know what I've said. Anyway, we live for progress in an ever increasing space. Here's the thing: we're never happy. Okay, I've got a smartphone. Why isn't it faster? Oh, okay, it's faster. Why isn't it better? Oh, well, I can take pictures on it, but why can't I film in 4K? Okay, now that I can film in 4K, why isn't it not giving me 3D options? Oh, because we now have 3D smartphones. Okay, well, it's doing this. Why isn't it doing that? That's just one little item, and we're never fucking happy. We are acclimated and socialized. Oh, well, this is nice, but my next one is going to be. Oh, this is nice, but my next one is going to be. And we're calling that progress. Not when was the last time somebody said, "Oh, I like things exactly way they are." I love new shit. It's like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's really cool. Like, but it's not enjoying when new things come our way, because that's like learning to be happy with what you have and stuff like that. But they are telling us we are always being told that if you don't have the biggest, bestest, brightest, newest, then you must not be happy. How could you be happy with that? Why would that make you happy? Ooh, who would want that? Isn't that a good? Ew, who would want that? That's people do that all the time. And we are told constantly. So I think the problem that we have with progress / society / whatever is that through our modern lens, we have spent the last 50 years teaching ourselves and that enough is not enough. Yeah, we need, and that better. Yeah, last year's technology doesn't cut it anymore. How could you be happy with that? Ew. It's like, and if you're like, no, this is fine, there's something wrong with you. Like, oh, you're just not keeping up. I love my tech. I love my toys. I love whatever. But if I don't, like my cell phone, I've got a nice cell phone. I don't know where the fuck I put it, but it's around here somewhere. I've got a halfway decent cell phone. That's fine. It's about, I don't know how old it is now. Lisa kind of needed. This is the catch-22 of life, right? Lisa's like, oh, well, the camera, if I need a new I want a new cell phone, because she does so much on her phone, and she sometimes films on her phone, right? It's like, well, I want a slightly better phone because then I can get a better camera for filming. It's like, okay, not a problem. And then it's like, oh, I need a new phone. I'm going to need a new phone soon, so just give me your leftovers. Give me your hand-me-down, because I don't do the same things on it, right? And when I said that, who was it? I commented that, well, the nice new shiny was good for Lisa. Oh, glad you're back. The Lost Continent. It's not letting me do it. Fucking thing. CJ Cutliff Hine. I'll have to. CJ. God, I suck at this stuff. Oh, it's a novel. Ooh, okay. Do. I suck at getting links. Oh, no need to be sorry. Never say sorry. What the fuck? Did that come up as 2? Oh my God, what did that do? I have no idea what that did, but the second one should be a clickable link. I have no idea. I suck at getting links. But anyway, I could babble about this for way too long. An older fantasy story, but it's really good. You know what? There's the interesting thing talking about Atlantis stories and stuff like that is that the people who do write fiction about Atlantis tend to keep the I don't know if these are like, fans of Atlantis theory that are looking up current theories and including them in, but they seem to be fairly consistent in the mythology of it, which I think it's fun. Well, don't break yourself. I say sorry by way of a greeting. I am Canadian. My problem, not my problem. Just never actually. You can say sorry all you want. Just don't actually be sorry. It's fine. I think we're going to talk about AI next week. I haven't got. Nobody's really made a suggestion so far. So we'll stick with AI. We'll do AI next week. Because I don't pay attention to AI that much, and I don't really pay attention to AI that much. I kind of geek out over it, but I don't. We will all learn together. But no, I think it's interesting though. I'm going to go back to the cell phone story though, because when I mentioned somewhere, and I forget where this was, I mentioned that I was taking Lisa's hand-me-down phone. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, I'm telling the story in reverse. My phone died. Okay. My phone died, and Lisa was kind of going, yeah, I'm kind of wondering that next time that my next phone, once this phone dies, I might want to upgrade, yada, yada, yada. So basically, let's upgrade you now, and I'll just take your old phone. Right. And somebody somewhere said like, well, ew, why would you do that? It's an older phone. And it's like, now nobody was trying to be rude or crude or anything like that. Nobody was being mean. But it was still, I remember it as a conversational point. So, but the interesting thing is it's like, we're so acclimated and conditioned that you never step back. Like a friend of mine wanted to go homesteading, and they're like, okay, well, I'm retiring next year. We're retiring next year. So when we retire, we're gonna do some. My husband wants to homestead, so that's what we're gonna do. And she had no support. Oh my God, the things you'll have to give up to make that happen, and almost everything about it, planned obsolescence. Yeah. We live in a world where if you're not progressing, you're the problem. We do not live in a world where you can say, and this kind of happened, snap your fingers, and this kind of happened right around the end of World War I. So like the 1920s or so, for about the last 100 years, it's all about the next new thing. And the next new thing, as our technology increases, the next new thing is coming faster and faster. So our demands are coming faster and faster, and our ability to be angry, disappointed, upset, feeling like the world is out to get us, that's also getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, industrial revolution. Industrial revolution that started it for the upper classes. For the lower classes, it meant, for the lower classes, there wasn't necessarily a lot of change at that point in time. But once the industrial revolution evolved, hi Kaz. Yeah, phone is 5 years old, still doing great. But the thing is that, and I like getting the next new thing, right? That's not the problem. The problem is that we tell ourselves our life is not complete, and we're miserable, we're angry, we're upset, we're this, we're that. That's always been the problem. The Industrial Revolution was definitely the start of something, because the Industrial Revolution started making things cheaper, faster, easier to obtain. So the lower classes kind of suffered during the Industrial Revolution because life got dirtier and more dangerous for the guy who's just trying to work a 9 to 5 and make a job, make a living. But then as safety started improving, wages started improving, and then we reached this point where this is now, we reached this point where this sense of, I don't know if plenty is the right word, but everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody's got access. Everybody can walk into the store and buy a pop. It's not unobtainable. And when you say things like the masses, that sounds so fucking classist and ignorant. And I get it. I get that. I get that as a concept. But because of that, it makes it difficult to talk about, more urban, less rural. Because we have certain ways of speaking or ways of observing, whatever that is, like, it is not okay. Yeah, we are the masses. Yeah, I have so many feelings about these topics: planned obsolescence, growth just for the sake of growth, technology that's starting to outpace our biology, and the greed that's behind so much of our progress. We are the masses. Yeah. But when you say like the masses, then it's like, oh, you're being classist. And it's like, who is actually invested in calling me classist for saying things like the masses? Is it my fellow masses, or is it the people that profit off of? Anyway, that's a whole second option. But the thing is that as things started getting more and more available further down the economic food chain, it got easier and easier. Well, if you don't have this, you're nothing. I know people, I know people. I worked with a girl whose only reason for getting a job, she was living at home, parents paying all the bills. Basically from a family where, no, you just stay at home, I'll take care of all the bills. Like, once you're married, then you can figure out what you want to do with your husband. Her family didn't want her working. And she started working. She started working at a shit job in shit conditions, taking a lot of shit because she wanted to go buy, what the fuck was it, a Louis Vuitton bag? Like, she wanted luxuries that her parents, obviously her parents, maybe some parents do buy their kids shit like that. Well, no, I want nice stuff. So she's putting herself through this because she doesn't want to be seen. This was like, oh God, this was like 10 years or so ago now, probably closer to 15 by now. She didn't want to be seen without the nicest, newest stuff. And it's like, but why are you working this job? This is not the greatest. I'm working this job because we got bills to pay. You don't like the job. You don't like, well, she had a couple of friends at work, obviously. But it's like, you don't like the people you're working for. You don't like the job itself. There's nothing you like about being here except for the couple of friends that you've made while you're here. Well, it's like, I know so many people that are working themselves to the bone, not because they need to pay the rent, but because they need to get a new iPhone this year. Like a work friend of Lisa's, years and years and years, also years ago. But yeah, like basically a shopaholic, working full time, shopaholic, spending money faster than she can make it because she didn't want to fall behind. Well, my daughter wants this, my son wants this, I want that, yada 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 yada. And she gets talking, and it turns out that like 95% of her income was going on shit that her and her family didn't even need, stuff that her kids hadn't even been asking for. She just didn't want them to go without. It's like, oh my God. Now, let's be honest. Okay. That's a hard one. As a parent, I have set aside money to make sure my kids, I'm pretty sure my kids are going to benefit from this. So I've done it. Right. But, the newest iPhone, because last year's model is just no longer good enough, is a different problem, which even that, like, that's not the problem. It's the problem of people who can't afford it that are doing it anyway, right? Because we are the masses. And this is what we're being taught from birth, that if we're not constantly moving, if we have to have the newest, shiniest, or we're not good enough. And there's so much new, shiny stuff that we can have. But I should probably not get on my high horse about that. I mean, I don't know. We're all entitled. We are all entitled to, like, that's kind of like, what the hell is that? Oh, that's just something. I saw something dangling over there, and it's like, what? What is it? Is this something dangling from the tree? Yeah, tarot addiction, it can be a problem. Absolutely. Here's the thing. We talk about this all the time. And we do talk about it a lot. Tech hardware takes 5 or 6 years to age out, upgraded to 2 years before current version, save almost 50. Yeah. Lisa's a little quicker to upgrade than I am, but she's got the channel and does a lot of filming on her phone and stuff like that. So it's like, well, okay. And we can afford it. If Lisa comes home today and says, "Oh, I'm looking at this new phone," it's like, well, we haven't got the money set aside for that. So, once the money's set aside, right? But it's not wanting the stuff. Okay, tarot addiction, right? Tarot addiction can be a problem. That part's fine. But we are surrounded by so many. We are in a world that has just got so much stuff. Oh no, you know what? We talk about it all the time. And the thing is that it's a very frustrating conversation to have, because it's like, oh, well, if you have this, you must have a mental health problem. It's like, no. That's not what smart people are saying, right? Lisa and I, we like our tech, we like our geeky shit, and that's fine, but we make our choices. Yeah, Lisa's usage is very different. But there are people who, like I said, some of collecting is OTT. I don't understand OTT. What's that mean? I always like to know the acronyms, but then I never remember them. Thing is, over the top? Is that what you're saying? Did you say over the top? Did I get it right? Thing is that wanting new stuff, wanting to be constantly upgrading or advancing or moving ahead, that's fine. But giving into this outwardly over the top. Yeah, I got it right. Giving into this outwardly. If I'm buying a tarot deck because I want a tarot deck, it's because I want a tarot deck. If I'm buying a tarot deck because you can still give into pressure. I don't know how to describe this, right? This is a topic that can go in huge circles. What we do, when we do it, and how we do it, our personal motivations are different for everybody. But we also live in a very strong pressure cooker of external pressure that we should be doing it. Does that make sense? Am I saying this right? When you do a thing for your own reasons, when you do a thing, it's nobody's fucking business but your own. Yes, this is what Michelle said. Some people say that modern technology, come on. Some people say that modern technology is making us less satisfied because we can finally see into the lives of others who are more fortunate and we want what they have. Back when we were all peasants, we had no way of knowing what the nobles had and what we were missing. We live in a world that gets its collective jollies about always being invested in what the other guy has and always wanting what the other guy has. That's the external pressure cooker motivation, right? Because that's what marketing is all about. That's what advertising is all about. That's what, I think the desire for new fancy desired decks has a negative impact on my learning tarot. I was buying new, looking for the deck, just needed to work on my chops. Exactly. This is the thing. This is like, and this is a conversation that Lisa and I have. Like, okay, let's just get real. Fuck this shit. If you guys are willing to hang around, we'll just move this into a totally new direction. We'll just move this. There. Here's my lecture the internet face. Thing is, okay, like Lisa and I have talked about this quite a bit. She's got the Unicorn Journey Tarot coming out. We're doing Sassy Dragons Tarot. I'm sure I've told you about I'm sure I've mentioned that she's already working on the Unicorn's Journey Oracle. There's another deck after that, and another deck after that. She's got 5 decks planned over the next 2.5, 3 years. And that's fine. How do you balance being a deck creator? Hey, if you want my deck, you can come and buy it. With don't, and this is like it's almost like, sometimes it feels like a rock in a hard place, right? And I sell tarot bags all the fucking time, right? Like that's my business. That's what I do. Yeah, I was thinking about this last night. I have a lot of decks at this point, but my absolute favorites are still among the first few I bought. Absolutely. This is the thing, right? So how do you balance? Oh, hey, because we've talked about this from Lisa moving into create, she's a collector, but now she's creating a few decks, right? It's like, well, how do you reasonably and rationally explain to people that I have a deck to sell if you'd like to buy it, and that's all fine with me. But if that's not okay, I do not under any circumstances want you to feel pressured to line up and give me money that you would rather be using for something else or that isn't going to do you any good, right? And this is and yet there are all, and we know this, we know there are people, we know that there are people out there that are pumping out decks just to make bucks. And that's just how life goes, right? And it's an interesting conversation. And again, I do the bags, right? I do the bags. I'm not here selling you bags today. I'm not trying to sell a bag. And at the same time, if that's something you want that works for you and satisfies your need to whatever, that's fine, right? I don't want. I would love to sell back. I would love. How do I express this? What I would love is to sell 1 million bags to people who are buying the bags because it makes sense, it's rational, it's reasonable, and they're not giving in to any sort of pressure or, you know what I mean? I hated RWS and bought so many decks, but have now gone back to basics and I love RWS. Yeah. Thing is, how do we, this constant pressure to load up your life with shit, especially if that shit is a one-step progression ahead of other shit that already existed. Like, oh, you need the newest iPhone. Why? Why do I need my, yeah, oh, the irony. But it's like, why do I, so we are all engaged. Here's the thing. No matter what you do for a living, no matter what you do, you're engaged in selling something to somebody. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just the I'm just working. I'm just pressing the button that makes the machine run at the I work for the company that prints tarot decks. You're selling something. Because if tarot decks suddenly stop selling, you're out of work. I'm working for the company I'm working for the bookstore. Well, if people lose interest if people stop reading books, you're out of work. We're selling our precious time. 76%. Well, hello, Bruno. I'm sorry, baby. Let me just get all my shit out of your way. You're okay. Come over here. Come on. Ugh. Bruno came over here, tried to lay down on all my books, and then gave me the most guilt-ridden look. Well, here's the thing. Working. Oh, Lisa's home. Hello, Lisa says hello to the internet. Thing is that we have for the first time in recorded history have an era of plenty. Now, for some people in some situations, it doesn't look like that. But when you talk about the masses, even 100 years ago, how do I express this? Even 100 years ago, we paid for food, clothing, and shelter. Yeah. Oh yeah. He's over there now because Lisa's 100 years ago, we paid for food, clothing, and shelter. And if there was anything left over, food, clothing, and shelter. And if there was anything left over, we were lucky. And we counted ourselves lucky. Oh, I got enough to eat today. I'm lucky. Now we live in a society. Everybody says hi. Hi. Now we live in a society where food, shelter, clothing, and stuff. And if we don't have stuff, we don't consider ourselves lucky. We don't sit down and go, I got enough. I have a roof over my head. I got enough to eat today. I'm lucky. We don't do that. We don't do that anymore. Back to what? Oh my God. Who said what? Wasn't it you, Michelle, said something about comparing? Yeah, we have more of a window into the more fortunate. And now we are acclimated. Today's society has acclimated us to be jealous of the more fortunate. So we want what they've got. So we go ahead and our ability to acquire stuff. Anyway. Oh, she's wandered off. I'm good for 5 more minutes. But anyway, thing is that what I do with my time, my money, my resources is nobody's business but my own. But I think we need a stronger awareness in our society of this external pressure. We live in a society where most people can't buy their own home. We think we are more fortunate. Yeah. Oh yeah. We rent and we rent and yeah, there's no way that we can afford a house where we live right now. Yeah. No more stuff. Love space more than clutter. I think, you know what, Stephen, if you love clutter, that's fine. But I think we constantly have this conversation with ourselves. You have to put your own you have to look at what works for you. Yeah, not in BC. We're in BC. That's just ain't happening. That just ain't happening out here. You have to look. Hi, Bruno. You have to look at what works for you. You have to do this. You have to do this emotional self check-in. What part of it is, hey, this is what I'm into. I try to give experiences rather than things. So the thing is that if collecting decks is what works for you, absolutely.
Works for me.
It works for you, but yeah, but I was talking about those conversations that we've had about like really about you flipping the script and now selling decks, while at the same time being very much an advocate for don't buy stuff just to be having stuff.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, it feels like a rock hard place sometimes from our end of things with what we've got going on, right?
I was just being a sassy ass.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But thing is that we have to basically what we need is a societal shift that strips away the external pressure. When you take away the external pressure of, the other kids are jumping off that bridge, right? Because we do not think of it like that. We do not think, oh, just what's one more? Oh, everybody else is getting this deck, I'm going to get it too. We don't think of that as the same situation of if all your other friends jumped off a bridge, because that's not buying a deck isn't catastrophic. What the hell? What's going on, right? So Lisa does use her decks differently than most tarot buyers. She needs her decks. Well, here's the thing. She collects consciously, right? Sometimes she will buy a deck. Oh, these people bought a deck. They're really enjoying it. So I definitely want to check it out. But then again, buy, sell, trade, do whatever. If she gets a deck that she doesn't want, she doesn't feel obligated to keep it. She doesn't feel obligated to keep it. She doesn't feel obligated to force it to work. And we're working with it. It's like we always know, we've got this much money to spend towards decks. We've got this much money to spend towards decks. The conversation for me always revolves around those people who are unhappy, who are overextending their budgets, they get one and they're ready for the next one. And a lot of that, my opinion is that a huge piece of that comes from all these external pressures, because we're taking this idea of progress. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think she has a couple of times. I think she ended up with a couple of decks that she was able to she's never bought a deck just to see if it just to collect it for monetary value. I think she did have a couple of decks that was like, oh my God, I'm not interested in this deck, and I just found out it's worth this much money in it. I have no problem with that. But thing is that we take this idea of progress and we apply it to everything. So it's like, I don't know. I do not know. It's a conversation. It's a big conversation with a ton of nuance based on the individual. But I think we currently live in a world where there's this external pressure that no matter what you have, it's not enough. It's not good enough. She wrote all over it. Wait, what? I'm not sure. Are you talking about a specific deck? I would not know. Oh my God. I am like, oh my God, her decks scare me. Her decks scare me. It's true. Thing is that it's really into modern society. Modern society comes with a whole lot of modern problems. One of our modern problems is that we have a lot of stuff. We are just surrounded by stuff, all the time. And marketing and advertising and all the various pressures. And there was one valuable deck that she wrote on. Oh, I'll have to ask her about that. But I mean, okay, she never buys or sells or trades a deck based on its value. She never does the whole, oh my God, this might be worth money someday. I'm gonna put it in a box and whatever. But yeah, you know what though? There's like we're kind of like, oh my God, my fabric collection, right? We're pretty we get pretty cluttered in here once in a while, right? That's actually not the issue. The issue is always that self check-in to go, is this what I want? Is this what I need? Is this what works for me? Is this me, or am I responding to somebody else? Am I responding to, oh, needs to go for real this time? Yeah, I need to go for real. I need to go for real in a minute. Bruno's over here. I don't know if I can show you him without closing my computer completely. Bruno's over here being pathetic puppy. He needs to do the thing. But it's okay, Bubby. It's this thing. It's this check-in. But I think it's this basically, you know what it is taking this bigger societal problem of this rapid progress, this rapid thoughtless progress that we're seeing in society in general, and bringing it back down. Yeah, he's just over here. He, for some reason, just wasn't going to sleep last night. He was just sitting beside me going, hi, I'm wide awake. I'm wide awake, right? It's 2 a.m. and I'm wide awake. So he has just been a lump all day. It's like, I'm sleepy today. Oh, now he's just trying to get, now he's really trying to play it up. What you doing? Are you just going to look around? Hi. Oh, he's just, there you go. There you go. He is too busy being a lump today. Usually if I pet him, yeah, sometimes he gets like that. Sometimes he just doesn't want to sleep. But anyway, no, I think it's really interesting. I think that we've equated progress with this. We've equated progress with this never-ending drive to be acquiring things, and it's found its way into so many. It's found its way into our personal lives. Like I said, we always have to have the newest iPhone. Okay, that's not as visible because you get the newest iPhone, you get rid of the old iPhone. That's not as visible as collecting things is, right? When you're collecting things, you still have the old stuff that's building up. When you are constantly upgrading and improving and upgrading and improving, oh, I need a new car because the old one's 2 years old. I need a new phone because there's a new one out. I need this latest video game. I need this. I need this. I need this. When you're constantly, when that's the societal incentive, it starts backlashing and other things. But anyway, hi, what you doing? Are you being my baby? Are you being my little boy? Am I making you sad though? He just wants all the cuddles in the world, and he's like trying to climb up my arm. He's over there trying to climb up my arm while still trying to lay on his back. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's my personal opinion and my personal observations because I have stuff. We all have stuff. I have lots and lots of stuff. I have a small deck collection of my own, and it's probably time to cull it again. I've managed to collect a bunch of decks, but I don't know. I think it's a really interesting thing because I do think that it goes up to, like I said, as stuff becomes more available to us as the masses, our ability to watch, observe, and be jealous of people that have more than us builds. And I think it's driving a lot of our advancements in all these interesting ways that are not necessarily good for anybody. But I don't know. That's probably conversation. It's probably conversations that we need to have more of. We need to have more of the conversation starting from the big picture and drilling down, because this whole idea that like that one person, oh, if you collect decks, you have a mental health problem. It's like, oh, that's bullshit. That's a different problem. That's a different problem when people will walk in prejudging because that's a different, it's like, that's not okay either, right? But anyway, I better get going. Corporations. Joy of missing out. Oh my God. Sometimes we have to learn that as a skill. We have to learn the joy of missing out as a skill. And like I said, we are all 76% of any given population is involved in non-necessary things. Outside of food, clothing, and shelter, everything else in our world is not necessary. It might make life easier, more pleasant, more convenient, more this, more that, but it's not necessary. 76% at last. That's the last time I bothered to look it up. I was reading. I forget what I was reading. It was a long time ago. 76% of our economy, of any given economy, is based around the buying, selling, and trading of things. A restaurant, you don't need a restaurant. A restaurant is a convenience. It is not a necessity. It's a want, not a need. So when you look at the needs of, when you look at the things that you need in life, 76% of any given economy is driven by the extras and not the necessities. Unless you are growing food, producing clothing, right? So it is just the reality of our modern. It is the reality of our modern civilization and corporations. Yeah, JOMO is better than FOMO, but corporations exist. Corporations live and die on the idea that they need you to fear missing out. I mean, how many Louis Vuitton bags does anybody actually need? Even, I don't know. But then again, if you could afford it, more power to you, right? Yeah, that's what he's doing. He is trying to hug my leg, and make sure I keep petting him. If I stop petting him, it starts going at this. Anyway, I'm going to get off my high horse now. Food for thought. But I do think that part of our societal greed is driving our technology, which may be helpful, but that leads to shit like AI, which is, yeah, yeah. Can you imagine me with a purse? Okay, me personally, Lisa's got like 4 or 5, but she doesn't have a Louis Vuitton. But anyway, I will get off my high horse, and definitely I get on that high horse at the drop of a hat, because societal greed is doing our society no favors, and it's really, really making it difficult on a personal level to sort your shit out between fulfillment, FOMO, JOMO, whether or not it's reasonable, whether it makes things so much more complicated when it doesn't need to be. But maybe that's something we'll do one day. Let's talk about JOMO. But next week we'll talk about AI, which will probably lead to a whole bunch of fucking rabbit holes. It'll get me on my high horse, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go now, because if I hear Lisa moving around, and yeah, bye for real. This is like the long goodbye. I've been saying goodbye for like 10 minutes now. My dog is distracting me, and I'm bitching about things, right? It's like, I gotta go. I'm coming. Okay. I will see you guys later. Have a great weekend. It's a long weekend in Canada, so for anybody enjoying Canada Day, have a good one. And I will be back next week with whatever, and next Friday will be AI. Bye.